Chapter 306. Looking at the fighting ring that was instantly shrouded in a thick white fog, the spectators revealed a cautious look. The endless white fog rose up to 100 meters in the air and covered the entire fighting ring. Everyone's line of sight was blocked, which was extremely displeasing to the audience. Soon after, the sound of intense energy clashing could be heard from within the fog. The spectators held their breaths and listened attentively. Senior brother Yibugue is about to show his prowess, the guest from the Tianluo dynasty said with a relaxed smile. Later on, that person will be thrown out just like the person from the Sword dynasty. That's right. Our Tianluo dynasty will regain the championship of the Heaven List. The people from the Tianluo dynasty were very clear about Yibugue's strength. Of course, the people from the Sacred Star dynasty were also very confident in Huang Fuliang. On the pavilion in the north, due to the influence of the fog, the spectators could not know the situation inside the fighting ring. The rulers of the dynasties could not help but mock each other. However, the rulers of the Sword dynasty, the Flame Shadow dynasty, and the Rock dynasty had some complaints. At this point in the battle, the three of them were merely spectators. However, compared to the other rulers, the one who felt the most helpless was naturally the emperor of the Sacred Star dynasty, Huang Fu Hao. As for the reason, only he himself knew it best. Intense true core strength continuously surged out from the inside of the fog. To the spectators, being able to hear but not see, they were more or less irritated and anxious. Sigh, how boring. Luo Mengchong sighed softly with a bored look on her face. Chu Hen, who was beside her, smiled. Then his eyes turned cold, and he shouted in his heart, "Demon!" In an instant, a peculiar power flowed within his body, and an obscure purple radiance surged within Chu Hen's eyes. Buzz, buzz. In the next moment, Chu Hen's vision rapidly changed. Following that, the situation of the battle within the thick fog appeared in his eyes. Inside the fog, Huang Fuliang and Yibugue were still fighting fiercely. It was hard to tell who would win. In comparison, Knight's Uncanny had the advantage of the ghost fog technique. The other party's body was able to change its position at will in the thick fog, and its speed was so fast that it was like a ghost. This ghost fog technique could definitely be called an extremely high-level assassination technique. Ordinary people would not be able to withstand it at all. It was only natural that Qin Yingxiao would lose so miserably. However, although the Wind Ghost Clan's secret technique was strange and powerful, Huang Fuliang did not seem to be at a disadvantage in the ghost mist. What's that? Chu Hen squinted his eyes and saw that Huang Fuliang was surrounded by a layer of golden light. The golden light condensed into an illusory dragon shadow. The dragon shadow moved around Huang Fuliang's body as if it was a protective spirit beast. This should be the dragon spirit profound body. Before the Heaven List tournament started, Chu Hen had already learned from Xiaqing that Huang Fuliang's bloodline limit was the dragon spirit profound body. Only the royal family of the Sacred Star dynasty possessed such a powerful physique. It was a powerful physique that belonged to the highest level of the profound body's bloodline. To the Sacred Star dynasty, Huang Fuliang was indeed a genius that only appeared once in 100 years. The golden dragon shadow constantly moved around Huang Fuliang's body like a protective spirit beast. The dragon shadow seemed to have the power to track the enemy's aura. No matter where Knight's Uncanny hid in the fog, Huang Fuliang would be able to see through him quickly. As a result, Knight's sneak attack did not have the same effect as when he fought against Qin Yingxiao. You don't have to waste your time. I've already said that your insignificant skill can't do anything to me, Huang Fuliang said disdainfully as he released his powerful true origin energy. It's getting more and more interesting. Compared to winning easily, I would rather you die under my strongest attack. Rumble. As soon as he finished speaking, the fog around Huang Fuliang stirred up an extremely restless and violent energy. The thick fog was like a ferocious wave as it rolled towards Huang Fuliang. Waves of sharp ghost howls filled everyone's eardrums. In the white fog, blurry human faces could be vaguely seen. The faces turned from blurry to clear, and they approached Huang Fuyang from all directions. A cold wind blew, and it was bone-chilling. Oomph. Huang Fuyang's face revealed a disdainful sneer. Dragon roar! Roar! A loud dragon roar came from the fog, and Huang Fuyang burst out with a torrential aura. His body was dazzling with golden light, and the golden dragon spirit around him rapidly expanded, emitting a domineering and furious aura. Break! Boom! The terrifying power soared into the sky, and the faces gathered around were all shattered into pieces by the impact. The white fog that filled the sky seemed to have encountered the holy light of the sun. Under the dazzling light of the dragon spirit, the fog was quickly dispersed. What's going on? Huang Fuyang was enraged. Feeling the dazzling golden light piercing through the mist, everyone was shocked. They opened their eyes wide and focused their attention on the battle stage. It's coming out. Although the time it took for the fog to envelop them was less than 100 seconds, everyone felt that every second felt like a year. Who had the upper hand? How was the battle going? Under thousands of puzzled gazes, a domineering giant dragon shadow that looked down on all living things swayed its huge body and soared into the sky. In the middle of the mighty dragon shadow, Huang Fuyang soared into the air and flashed into the sky. It's Huang Fuyang. Ha, I knew it. This power is not enough to trap him. No wonder he is the strongest in our Imperial Martial Academy. Wrong. He is the strongest in the Sacred Star Dynasty. With the dragon shadow surrounding him, Huang Fuyang's body emitted the aura of the imperial family. He was elegant and dignified. Huang Fuyang's power shocked everyone. Hee. At the same time, Yibugue also flashed into the sky. Rays of grayish-white light quickly revolved around his body. The vast and powerful aura shook the heavens and the earth. Rumble. The sky changed color and the wind and clouds surged. A thick grayish-white cyclone gathered in one side of the sky, and another side of the sky was filled with a dazzling holy light. At this moment, the faces of all the spectators were filled with shock. Everyone felt an astonishing pressure. Many people from the Sacred Star Dynasty and the Tian Luo Dynasty stood up subconsciously. Lu Qi, Qi Teng, Lin Yuan, Long Qingyang, Yibugui, Situ Feng, Luo Mengshang, and the other geniuses from the other dynasties looked solemn. Chu Hen narrowed his eyes. He had to admit that the strength of these two was indeed shocking. Even the Tian Luo sovereign, the Sacred Star sovereign, the Divine Empress, and Huang Fuqing, who were in the Northern Pavilion, had serious expressions on their faces. Before this, no one dared to say who would have a last laugh. As for the winning side, it could be said that they would be the champion of this year's Heavenless tournament. If you have any moves, just use them. Huang Fuyang's expression was surprisingly calm. Yibugue's smile was evil and ferocious. His eyes were bloodthirsty, and his voice was sharp and strange. As you wish. Buzz. The space around Yibugue suddenly became uneasy and started to shake violently. White cyclones filled the air. Accompanied by the bone-chilling cold wind, the countless grayish-white cyclones spiraled toward Yibugue's back. Soon after, under the gazes of tens of thousands of people, an incomparably huge gray shadow appeared in front of everyone's eyes from blurry to clear. The gray shadow had an outline similar to a human's, but its head was as ferocious as that of a ghoul that wanted to take its life. A terrifying aura filled the sky, and in the right claw of the ghoul, there was a sharp demonic trident. Their auras were equally matched. One was filled with Yin energy, while the other was furious. Yibugue laughed weirdly. He pointed at Huang Fuyang and said, "Come, let me see what you are capable of." "Humph, you will definitely lose." Roar! Along with the sound, the golden dragon shadow around Huang Fuyang roared angrily and charged at the opponent with a monstrous beast aura. Woo! The ferocious ghoul that Yibugue had summoned opened its mouth and shrieked. It also released a bone-chilling Yin energy to counter the attack. The grayish-white light and the golden holy light were like two meteorites that had met. Under the nervous and trembling gazes of the spectators, they collided. Boom! A violent force exploded in the sky above the competition area. An unprecedented turbulence was created above everyone's heads. In an instant, the ferocious ghoul and the ferocious dragon started fighting. All sorts of essential energy ripples spread across the sky. Circles of extremely destructive power spread out in the sky. Wherever it went, space trembled, and even dust was swept away. The experts of the Dark Team of the Sacred Star Dynasty hurriedly set up a barrier in front of the North Pavilion to block the impact of the power ripples. What a shocking power! The audience gasped in shock. Are they going to be neck and neck again? The Emperor of Tian Luo frowned, and his eyes were filled with coldness. The real ruler of the Sacred Star Dynasty, the Divine Queen, was also shocked. Huang Fuyang and Yibu Gui. Who would win? After sitting in front of the computer for 7 hours, I finally finished writing 3 chapters before midnight. I'm so sleepy and my eyelids are so heavy. But I am relieved that I did not break my promise. I'm only a dozen flowers away from the second place on the freshman list. Brothers, do you dare to kill him? Chapter 307. Roar, woo! The dragon's roar shook the heavens, shaking the heavens. The shriek of the ghoul caused people's hearts to tremble. The intense battle between the dragon spirit profound body and the wind ghost profound body caused the sky to darken and sparks to fly in all directions. The sky above the entire competition area was already enveloped in a cold, gray cyclone and dazzling sacred light. The intense clash of power caused the ground beneath everyone's feet to tremble. Countless spectators couldn't help but stand up from their seats. Their gazes were solemn, and their faces were filled with shock. Who will win? I don't know. I think it will be Yibu Gui. I also think it should be him. Yibu Gui's aura is still growing. Buzz buzz. Along with many trembling voices outside the arena, the aura emitted by Yibu Gui became increasingly cold and frightening. His scarlet eyes revealed an excited, bloodthirsty light. A sinister smile appeared on his face, causing people to feel a chill down their spines. Ha ha ha! Huang Fuyang. If you're only at this level, then I'm sorry to tell you that Yibu Gui, will take your life. Ha ha! His insolent and sharp laughter pierced the eardrums of countless people. Boom! In the next instant, Yibu Gui clasped his hands together and interlocked his fingers. Following that, an extremely powerful aura burst out from his body like a tsunami. Wu, Ghoul, who was fighting with the dragon spirit, roared towards the sky, emitting an extremely sharp and ear-piercing sound. The ghost trident in his hand blossomed with a dense gray light. The white luster was filled with sharp, killing intent. Ghoul raised the incomparably powerful ghost trident. Circles of gray cyclones lingered on the trident, tearing the air apart. It was unstoppable, along with the trembling space. Under the shocked gazes of everyone present, Ghoul ferociously stabbed the sharp ghost trident into the waist of the golden dragon spirit. Roar! The dragon spirit let out a true, beast-like roar of pain. Its aura was instantly suppressed by Ghoul. Shortly after, an incomparably intense explosion rang out as the massive golden dragon shadow was blown apart. Golden light that blotted the sky blossomed wantonly. What? Everyone's expression changed drastically, especially the people from the Saint Star Empire. Their eyes were filled with solemnity. Yibu Gui, he is terrifyingly strong. Is Huang Fuyang really not his match? Could it be that the Sacred Star Empire is destined to lose the championship 3 times in a row? The surging mass of gray gas filled the sky and quickly occupied the sky above the arena. The pitchfork-wielding corpse ghost was like a grim reaper. Its surging gray light blotted out the sun, and dark clouds covered the sky. Anyone could feel an extremely heavy pressure. On the North Pavilion, a faint smile appeared on the face of the Tian Luo Sovereign King. The Sacred Star Sovereign, Huang Fuhao, furrowed his brows and clenched his fists. He constantly glanced at the Divine Empress from the corner of his eyes. His eyes were clearly filled with reverence and anxiety. However, the divine empress's expression was abnormally calm. Her indifferent eyes, without a single ripple, only watched the battle in front of her. Hee, it seems like your majesty Tian Luo is still superior. The sovereign king of the Sword Dynasty's mocking voice could be heard. Don't speak too early. Your majesty, the sovereign king of Tian Luo smiled and said, the Misty Wind Dynasty still has a strong contender. The Sacred Star Empire also has a strong dark horse. A battle between level 9 core transformation realm experts. How can the other two be counted on? Looking at the unshakable Yi Bugue, most of the people present already had an answer in their hearts. The guests from the Tianluo dynasty had already started cheering. Haha, as expected of Yi Bugue. Amazing. Yi Bugue is the strongest. Tianluo team is the champion. However, Huang Fuyang did not panic in the slightest as he faced the horrifying ghouls that were charging at him with a terrifying aura. Not only that, but a mocking and disdainful smile appeared on his face. I'm afraid it's too early to be happy. What? As soon as he said that, everyone could not help but be shocked. Boom! As soon as he said that, a towering silver light suddenly shot out from Huang Fuyang's body, and an endless amount of power instantly pressed down in all directions. What's that? Everyone's eyes widened. The dazzling silver light was like the light of the stars. Huang Fuyang's aura skyrocketed. Even the surface of his body was faintly shining. That's the star energy from the starry universe grand formation. Moreover, it's the 7-star energy. My goodness. Huang Fuyang actually obtained the 7-star energy to temper his body? At this moment, all sorts of exclamations and trembling voices could be heard from the spectator seats. Lu Qi, Qi Teng, Lin Yuan, Situ Feng, and the other geniuses were shocked. Their eyes were burning with excitement. All of them knew that the starry universe grand formation contained many strange energies. Apart from the star energy that could strengthen one's body, there was also the 7-star energy that was even more powerful. If one could use the 7-star energy to temper one's body, it would be able to cleanse one's tendons and strengthen one's bones. However, through the probing of all the geniuses, they noticed that the so-called 7-star energy was not so easy to obtain. There seemed to be some sort of restriction, and they had to open that layer of restriction in order to obtain the 7-star energy. TSK. This Huang Fuyang is really a genius. He's the only one who obtained the 7-star energy. As the saying went, the speaker did not mean it, but the listener did. Only one person? Not necessarily. Chu Hen, who was in the participants' area below the stage, narrowed his eyes. There was a hint of meaning in his eyes. If he wanted to obtain the 7-star energy, he would need a key to open it. That key was the Saint Star Dynasty's imperial family's Saint Star Heavenly Book. Chu Hen was not surprised that Huang Fuyang managed to obtain the 7-star energy. He believed the imperial family must have asked Huang Fuyang to look through the Saint Star Heavenly Book before the Heaven Ranking competition, so he could obtain the key to open the 7-star energy. Rumble. Huang Fuyang's aura soared as his body released the powerful star energy. Yibu Gui did not expect such a sudden change. I didn't expect you to obtain the 7-star energy. Hee. Huang Fuyang's face revealed a sinister smile. Today, I'll let you witness the power of the 7-star scripture. What? 7-star scripture? As soon as these 4 words came out, everyone's hearts trembled. The geniuses felt as though they were struck by lightning. Rumble. In the next instant, an endless dazzling light exploded from Huang Fuyang's body. The aura that shook the sky was like the 9 heavens dazzling Sunday. Yibu Gui's expression changed. Without saying a word, he immediately used Ghoul Corpse to launch a powerful attack. Wu, the aura from Ghoul Corpse was like a huge, ferocious beast approaching. At this moment, Huang Fuyang's body was enveloped in a brilliant silver light. A storm was brewing, and the sky was losing its color. Alcade flash, shocking heaven and earth, a thunderous roar exploded above everyone's head. In an instant, Huang Fuyang turned into a silver streak of light and shot out. The silver streak of light shone brightly, and from afar, it looked like 100-meter-wide silver meteorite. The silver meteor pierced through the sky. It was extremely fast and powerful. Bang! With an earth-shattering explosion, the silver meteor that Huang Fuliang had turned in hit the ferocious ghoul corpse. An incomparably violent force exploded in the sky, and the terrifying aura exploded. The scene in front of them was extremely shocking. It was as if a meteorite had fallen from the heavens and crashed into a huge, ferocious beast. Boundless destructive power poured out in all directions. In just a single exchange, under everyone's incomparably shocked gazes, the huge ghoul corpse was instantly smashed into pieces by the silver meteor. God! How is this possible? There was no one who wasn't shocked, no one who wasn't moved. 7-star energy, 7-star scripture? What kind of powerful and terrifying power was that? After defeating the ghoul with one strike, the strong silver flowing light rushed down towards Yibu Gui, who was in front of him. For the first time, Yibu Gui panicked. It was a kind of indescribable fear. Bang! A terrifying power rushed over and bombarded Yibu Gui's body. The destructive power surged over like a torrent of mountains. A brilliant silver halo spread out in front of Yibu Gui, causing the space to tremble violently. Yibu Gui's pupils constricted as he spat out a mouthful of blood. Everyone was flabbergasted by what they saw, especially the members of the Heaven Luo group, who were full of confidence a moment ago. In the blink of an eye, their faces turned pale. Yibu Gui's aura decreased sharply. The blood in his body churned, his internal organs shifted, and his bones shattered. Seeing this scene, the members of the Sacred Star Dynasty were shocked, and their hearts lit up. Victory! Huang Fuliang had firmly grasped victory in his hands. Yibu Gui fell from the sky. Then, a cold and complacent voice was heard. Hee, Yibu Gui, didn't you want to kill me? Now I'll give you a big gift. Swoosh! Before he finished speaking, Huang Fuliang's tyrannical figure shot out from the resplendent silver starlight. He left behind a series of afterimages in the air as he instantly caught up to Yibu Gui, who was still in the midst of falling. Yibu Gui's face changed dramatically, and he was shocked. Huang Fuliang's sinister face was reflected in his panicked eyes. Buzz! Strands of dazzling golden light swiftly climbed onto Huang Fuliang's right hand. In an instant, his right hand had turned into a sharp dragon claw. The dragon claw stretched out and attacked Yibu Gui's Dantian Aura C. No! Yibu Gui was extremely terrified. The sharp dragon claw pierced into Yibu Gui's flesh like tofu. Intense pain spread all over his body. A hidden force surged down and passed to Yibu Gui's Yuandan. Bang! Yibu Gui's Yuandan was smashed by Huang Fuliang. His blood was like a red rain falling in the sky. Huang Fuliang showed everyone what it meant to be ruthless. Chapter 308. Blood rained down from the sky like rain. Yibu Gui's cry of no was filled with endless fear and panic. However, the intense pain that followed immediately spread throughout his body, causing every nerve in his body to be numb. Every part of his mind was filled with extreme hatred and anger. Huang Fuliang's sharp dragon claw pierced through Yibu Gui's flesh like tofu, shattering the origin core in his dantian. Domineering and ruthless, Huang Fuliang's methods were swift and ruthless. Phew! Huang Fuliang retracted his claw. There was a shocking bloody hole in Yibu Gui's abdomen. Warm blood gushed out like a fountain, dancing in the wind. It was beautiful and frightening. In an instant, the expressions of everyone in the spectator stands changed drastically. All of their faces were filled with intense shock. Countless people were terrified. Some people's legs were shaking and they couldn't stand still. Once the origin core was destroyed, it meant that Yibu Gui would become a cripple. To any young, frivolous, and high-spirited genius, there was probably no blow that could be more miserable than this. Yibu Gui had wanted to kill Huang Fuliang, and Huang Fuliang had made him suffer more than death. 7-star power. 7-star scripture? At that moment, everyone looked at Huang Fuyang in awe and fear. Take care, I won't send you off. Trash. Huang Fuyang smiled disdainfully and let Yibu Gui fall from the sky. Yibu Gui's eyes were red and his face was twisted like a demon's. He was unwilling, angry, resentful, and miserable. All kinds of negative emotions occupied his heart. But so what? Huang Fuyang's cruel methods had ruined everything that Yibu Gui had. Big Brother, Ghost Spear King's disciple, Yibu Gui, and the other geniuses of Heaven Luo group were shocked. Yibu Gui quickly jumped up and caught Yibu Gui. Senior Brother Bu Gui? Looking at Yibu Gui, the few of them couldn't help but shiver in fear. This was especially true for Yi Wu Gui. He did not dare to believe that Lin Fan would have such a day. In the past, Yibu Gui was vicious and cruel. He was definitely an extremely dangerous existence. Even as his own brother, he was filled with reverence for him. But now, Knight's aura was extremely dispirited. He was as pitiful as a beggar by the roadside. All of this was because of Huang Fuyang. The geniuses from the various teams felt a chill down their spines. Lu Qi, Qi Teng, and even Lin Yuan, Situ Feng, and Su Rong, who were on the same team as Saint Star, frowned, and their expressions tensed up. Huang Fuyang really hid his strength well. Such an opponent was simply terrifying. How terrifying! Long Qingyang sighed softly. Looks like the Heaven List battle is almost over. On the side, Luo Mengshang faintly frowned. Her beautiful eyes flickered, and she shook her head slightly helplessly. On the North Pavilion, the Tian Luo Sovereign King slumped weakly onto the wide chair. His handsome face had clearly turned incomparably gloomy. He then laughed, but his laughter was filled with mockery. Ha, good, that's really good. This is worthy of celebration, truly worthy of celebration. Flame Shadow, Zhu Yin, Wu Feng, and the other sovereigns of the Sword Dynasty all looked at him meaningfully. The Tian Luo Sovereign King looked at the Divine Queen and continued, "Congratulations to the Saint Star Dynasty for solving the secret of the Starry Universe spying array, unlocking the power of the 7 stars, and obtaining this 7-star scripture. The day when the Saint Star Dynasty becomes the ruler of the 100 Kingdoms continent is just around the corner. Ha!" The Tian Luo Sovereign King's indiscriminate speech caused the other 4 sovereigns' expressions to turn slightly cold. The Saint Star Emperor, Huang Fu Hao, did not even know what to say at this moment. The Divine Queen raised her eyelids slightly and replied, "Tian Luo Sovereign, please watch your words. I am just a woman. I do not know what you mean." Ha 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 ha. A straightforward person does not need to resort to insinuations. Why does the Divine Queen have to continue pretending? I have no other intentions. I just want to congratulate the Saint Star Dynasty for winning the Heaven List 3 times in a row. That's all. The Tian Luo Sovereign King raised his arms and laughed loudly. The Divine Queen did not say much and continued to look at the competition grounds that were gradually falling into chaos. The other Sovereign Kings all had their own thoughts at this moment, each with their own thoughts. They had naturally heard of the 7-star scripture that was left behind by the 7 Souls' ancient kingdom. However, they had only heard of it and had never seen it before. Today, they had personally witnessed the terrifying power that Huang Fuyang had displayed. They could not help but have other thoughts. Currently, the Saint Star Dynasty had already won the Heaven List 3 times. This could only mean that the strength of this dynasty was already ahead of the other 5 dynasties. If this continued, it was not impossible for the Saint Star Dynasty to become the overlord of the 100 Kingdoms continent one day. The sovereigns of the various dynasties had no choice but to start strengthening their defenses. After the competition grounds recovered from the shock, a wave of deafening cheers was set off. Almost all the spectators of the Saint Star Dynasty stood up and applauded. Huang Fuyang, champion. The Saint Star Dynasty, the strongest. Huang Fuyang, champion. The neat and uniform voices were like the waves of the sea, one after another. Huang Fuyang stood proudly in the air. He looked heroic and domineering. His aura was extraordinary. He was like the moon surrounded by the stars. He gave off a shocking aura that suppressed the entire place. At this moment, everyone only had eyes for Huang Fuliang. He was like the brightest star in the dark night. He was dazzling, and everyone's attention was on him. All the geniuses of the teams were reduced to the background. The various strengths that the top geniuses had previously displayed were completely ignored by the spectators. The shocking scene of Huang Fuliang defeating Yibu Gui had completely occupied everyone's mind. Huang Fuliang champion. Haha. Host referee, please announce the result. Everyone shouted at the presiding judge, Lu Tong. The latter shook his head with a helpless smile. Ever since the start of the competition, he had been forgotten by everyone. Now, he was finally remembered. Everyone finally remembers me, the host. Lu Tong joked. Then, he raised his hands, and his loud voice reverberated like a tide. According to the rules of the Heavenless competition, the last person standing on the platform will be the champion today. Now, I will ask the contestants, is there anyone else who wants to challenge Huang Fuliang? His voice rang out, but no one answered. The spectators became more and more excited. Many young girls looked at Huang Fuliang as their idol. Huang Fuliang champion. Huang Fuliang the strongest. Huang Fuliang smiled proudly at the crowd. He was extraordinary and had the temperament of a royal family. Everyone couldn't help but turn to look at Misty Wind's Lu Qi. Strictly speaking, she was the only one who could stand a chance against Huang Fuliang. However, Lu Qi's beautiful eyes narrowed. Her delicate face was full of hesitation. Seeing that no one responded, Lu Tong clapped his hands 3 times. His loud voice was full of praise and affirmation. Next, I will announce everyone's emotions surged. They raised their hands, clenched their fists, and shouted Huang Fuliang. The champion of the Heavenless competition is Huang. Wait. Suddenly, an indifferent voice sounded from below the stage without any warning. Although these 2 simple words were calm, they seemed to possess a peculiar magical power that directly suppressed the impassioned atmosphere of the entire place. Everyone's heart skipped a beat. Chapter 309. Hold on. Just as Lu Tong was about to announce the winner of the Heavenly List tournament, an indifferent and solemn voice suppressed the excited atmosphere in the arena. Everyone's heart couldn't help but be startled. What's going on? What's going on? Everyone's faces were filled with astonishment and surprise. Long Qingyang, Luo Mengshang, Xia Qing, the Tensei Prefecture, the Sacred Star Empire, as well as every guest in the audience were all astonished. A slender young figure slowly walked out from the contestants' area. Every step he took was as steady as a mountain. He walked onto the arena with his back as straight as a spear in the cold. He raised his eyes, and 2 beams of light that were as resplendent as stars shot out from his eyes. An extraordinary heroic aura gushed out from his body. Huang Fuliang, I, Chu Hen, am here. Do you dare to fight? Boom! In an instant, the silent competition zone exploded into an unprecedented uproar. The appearance of this scene caused everyone present to be dumbfounded. Chu Hen actually challenged Huang Fuliang. A member of the Sacred Star Group challenged a member of the Sacred Star Group? This was the first time something like this had happened in the history of the 6-Nation tournament. Damn, what's going on? Chu Hen, stop messing around and get off the stage. Our Sacred Star Empire has already won the championship. Don't mess around. No matter what, Chu Hen had defeated 2 of the Flame Shadow Group's geniuses in the previous tournament. His performance had won the hearts of the people. Even so, in the eyes of the crowd, he was still incomparable to Huang Fuliang. However, faced with the voices coming from all directions, Chu Hen's eyes were filled with determination. His sharp gaze swept towards Huang Fuliang like a sharp sword. His throat gently moved as he spat out clear words. Since someone has to win, why can't it be me? Huang Fuliang, get off the stage. Why? An uproar swept through the entire arena. Apart from being shocked, everyone couldn't help but reveal looks of disdain. Humph, he really wants to be the champion so much that he dares to speak to senior brother Huang Fuliang in such a tone. I was admiring him just now. It seems like I'm really blind. He wants to compete with senior brother Huang Fuliang with that little ability of his. He's hopelessly stupid. In the blink of an eye, countless people turned from fans to haters towards Chu Hen. After all, Huang Fuyang had been famous for a long time, and his popularity had always been high in the capital. If everyone had to make a choice between the two, they would undoubtedly choose Huang Fuyang. However, Long Qingyang, Luo Mingshang, Long Xuanxuang, Xilan, and Mu Feng, who were familiar with Chu Hen, knew that things weren't as simple as they seemed. It was obvious that Chu Hen had emphasized the words Huang Fuyang, get off the stage. In other words, Chu Hen's main goal wasn't to become the champion of the Heaven List battle, but to settle the score with Huang Fuyang. Senior brother Xiaoyan, what's going on? Did Chu Hen and Huang Fuyang have any conflict during the preliminary round? Mu Feng asked. Li Hui, Zhou Lu, and Xilan also looked at him in confusion. Xiaoyan was also a little confused. He shook his head, clearly at a loss. There was only one direct confrontation, but it wasn't a big deal. Chu Hen doesn't need to do this. At the same time, Long Qingyang also asked Luo Mengchang. Miss Mengchang, did something happen between Chu Hen and Huang Fuyang? During the preliminary round, Chu Hen spent most of his time with Luo Mengchang, so Long Qingyang thought that she should know. Luo Mengchang naturally knew the reason. From the very beginning, the conflict between Chu Hen and Huang Fuyang had been escalating, especially when Chu Hen had almost lost his life under the spirit tree. Therefore, it wasn't a surprise that this had happened. Luo Mengshang's eyebrows slightly knitted together. She slightly shook her head, and her red lips slightly opened as she said, "Let's wait for Chu Hen to personally tell you about this matter." But Long Qingyang furrowed his brows and turned to look at Chu Hen. This time, Chu Hen was going up against the leader of the Sacred Star Group, the number one of the younger generation in the capital. Just now, under everyone's witness, Huang Fuyang had crippled Knight Bugue of Heaven Luo Group in an extremely cruel and ruthless manner. There was only one thought in Long Qingyang's mind, and that was to drag Chu Hen down. It's useless. Long Xuanxuang's cold voice carried a tinge of helplessness. Since young, as long as he has decided on something, no matter what we say, he will not listen. Xuanxuang, at a time like this, the only thing we can do is believe in him. Believe in him. Those words were hard to accept. Who would believe that Chu Hen could fight against Huang Fuyang? Long Qingyang clenched his fists so hard that his knuckles cracked. After a moment of hesitation, he finally stopped. In the arena, the tense atmosphere began to spread, and the air seemed to be filled with sparks. Huang Fuyang stood proudly in the air as he looked down at Chu Hen. His eyebrows were filled with disdain and contempt. Haha, seems like you're getting carried away after defeating that useless Pang Ao. Humph. The corner of Chu Hen's mouth raised into a cold arc. Right now, the most important thing for you to do is to come down and take a breather. Otherwise, when your true yuan runs out, don't say that I'm bullying you. Huh. Huang Fuyang's smile became even more disdainful. The light in his eyes was like he was looking at a dead man. Are you trying to take advantage of me while I'm weak? If that's the case, then you're gravely mistaken. Boom. As soon as he finished speaking, a powerful aura burst out from Huang Fuyang's body. The majestic aura was like a mountain pressing down on Lin Yan. Even though Huang Fuyang had just experienced an intense battle, the true yuan in his body was still shockingly powerful. What's going on? Huang Fuyang didn't use much of his true yuan? The audience was shocked. It's his bloodline limit. What? The bloodline limit of the dragon spirit body has the ability to quickly recover true yuan and physical strength. That short period of time was enough for Huang Fuyang to recover 70% to 80% of his true yuan. TSK, how amazing. Humph, that idiot Chu Hen doesn't even have the time to cry now. The crowd sighed in amazement while Long Qingyang, Mu Feng, Xilan, and the others had even more solemn expressions on their faces. Huang Fuyang's strength was even more shocking. The limit of the dragon spirit profound body's bloodline was so strong that it made people jealous. Everyone originally thought that Chu Hen would feel fear because of this. However, not the slightest bit of emotion could be seen on his face. I'm not trying to take advantage of you. You've only fought one battle, but I've fought two. In my opinion, you're not at a disadvantage at all. What a joke. Who are the two members of the Flame Shadow team? The members of the Flame Shadow team had ashen expressions on their faces. The audience agreed with Huang Fuyang's words. In terms of cultivation, Tan Xiao and Peng Ao from the Flame Shadow team were no match for Not Cunning. There was no way to compare them. However, everyone overlooked a point, and that was Chu Hen's current cultivation level was only at the 6th level of the core transformation stage. Whether it was Tan Xiao or Peng Ao, Chu Hen was fighting someone who was at a higher level than him. Who had the upper hand? It was clear. Chu Hen, get down quickly. How can you be a match for senior brother Huang Fu with that little strength of yours? That's right. Don't think that you're so arrogant just because you accidentally beat Peng Ao. You're only at the 6th level of the core transformation realm. How dare you act so arrogantly in front of a 9th level expert? Don't make things difficult for yourself. Host Lu Tong announced the result of the battle. Chase him off the stage. The audience was scolding Huang Fuyang. Most of them were from the Sacred Star dynasty. Lu Tong was in a difficult position. This was the first time something like this had happened. However, the rules did not state that members of the same team could not challenge each other. It would be unreasonable to chase Chu Hen off the stage just like that. The killing intent that filled the arena was getting colder and colder. Chu Hen and Huang Fuyang's eyes met. It was like the collision of an arrow and a sharp sword. Suddenly, a cold smile appeared on Huang Fuyang's face. His eyes were filled with killing intent. There's a path to heaven, but you refuse to take it. There's no door to hell, but you still want to barge into it. I, Huang Fuyang, announce that I will take your cheap life. Whoosh! As soon as he finished speaking, a terrifying aura surged from the sky. The majestic aura pressed down on Chu Hen like a mountain. Then, a dazzling golden light descended from the sky, bringing with it a powerful destructive aura. Chu Hen, be careful. Mu Feng from the Tensei Prefecture shouted. Boom! With a loud explosion, the ground violently trembled, and a giant pit opened up in the ground. Rubble and dust flew into the air, and Huang Fuyang impressively appeared on the stage. Chaotic true essence shockwaves splashed out everywhere. Where was Chu Hen? Everyone was shocked. He wouldn't die just like that, right? Everyone's gaze shifted to Huang Fuyang's feet. Chu Hen was nowhere to be seen among the rubble. However, in the next second, Huang Fuyang felt the wind behind him. Then, a ferocious whip kick swept toward Huang Fuyang's head with great lethality. Behind him, Chapter 310. Buzz! A powerful shockwave came from behind Huang Fuyang. Huang Fuyang's eyes turned cold as he saw a ferocious whip kick coming toward his face. Oof! Huang Fuyang sneered as he used his arm that was covered in golden radiance to meet Chu Hen's whip kick. Under normal circumstances, when the power of a 6th level core transformation stage martial artist collided with a 9th level core transformation stage martial artist, the former would definitely have his tendons and bones broken. However, with a loud bang, a ring of scattered true origin exploded between the two martial artists. This strike of Chu Hen's contained a tremendous force. Huang Fuyang's arm went numb, and he was actually forced to retreat a few steps. What? The hearts of the audience were slightly startled. In their first confrontation, Chu Hen actually had the upper hand. Swish! Without waiting for Huang Fuyang to stabilize his body, Chu Hen's body moved, and he took advantage of the momentum to leap up. He flipped his body and fiercely swept towards Huang Fuyang's head. Chu Hen's attack was swift and fierce like a ferocious beast. Huang Fuyang frowned as a ruthless glint flashed in his eyes. He moved his palm, and a dazzling golden radiance burst out from his right hand. The golden radiance instantly turned into the shadow of a sharp dragon claw. Dragon claws stretched out, ripping apart the air. Sharp as a guillotine blade, the wind from the claws grabbed towards Chu Hen's knee. Huang Fuyang's dragon claws were abnormally sharp. With a single strike, there was a kind of ferocious aura that could crush Chu Hen's kneecap. However, Just as Chu Hen's right leg was about to come into contact with Huang Fuyang's sharp claw, his whole leg burst out with a dense black radiance. He bent his leg and arched his knee, concentrating all of his strength. Bang! The violent collision created a turbulence that was similar to the collision of two huge rocks. The golden radiance and the black radiance were like two exploding water balls. The intense light spread on the stage. Huang Fuyang was once again pushed back by Chu Hen. This time, the distance he retreated was twice as far as the previous time. Is the strength of this guy's fleshly body so terrifying? He's actually able to contend against an expert at the 9th level of the core transformation realm. Xiaoyan raised his brows at the Tensei Prefecture's side. His face was filled with astonishment. Mu Feng, Li Hui, Zhou Lu, and He Qingyuan were even more surprised. According to common sense, any attack from Huang Fuyang would definitely be able to break Wu Xiao, who was at the 6th level of the core transformation realm. However, not only was Chu Hen completely fine, he even gained the upper hand twice in a row, and this was truly astounding. After that trip to the Seven Souls' ancient kingdom, Chu Hen's strength has grown a lot again. Instructor Song Chunglai exclaimed, "Hee, do you regret not taking him in as a direct student?" Shadowless, who was at the side, said casually. Song Chunglai smiled and pointed to Shilan on the other side. "If it were me, I'm afraid I wouldn't be able to teach as well as tutor Shilan." Shadowless nodded slightly and did not say anything else. In fact, the entire Tensei Prefecture knew that Shilan favored Chu Hen and that she had done a lot for Chu Hen. For example, the Sacred Heart rotating technique had caused Shilan to be in a weakened state for a whole month. If it was another instructor, Chu Hen might not have been able to reach such heights in just a year. Boom! Bang! Sparks flew in all directions and rocks flew everywhere. The battle between Chu Hen and Huang Fuyang had finally begun. The battle between the two top geniuses of the Sacred Star Dynasty had drawn the attention of everyone below the stage. The battle between the golden light and the black light was dazzling to the eyes. None of the people present had expected that the situation would develop to such a stage. On the pavilion in the north. "Hee, what a good show." The king of Tian Luo sneered and said, "Divine Queen, is this fun?" "Your Majesty, why do you say that?" The Divine Queen replied indifferently. "Hee, two geniuses of the Sacred Star Dynasty fighting for the championship. This is a glorious event. The geniuses of the Sacred Star Dynasty are indeed impressive." "Ha ha!" The king of Tian Luo's tone was mocking. His meaning was very simple. From his point of view, the battle between Chu Hen and Huang Fuyang was purposely arranged by the Divine Empress. It was nothing more than to tell the world just how abnormal the young generation of the Sacred Star Dynasty was. The first and second place of the Heaven List Great Battle of the Six Nations were all taken by the Sacred Star Dynasty. Flame Shadow, Wu Feng, Zhu Yin, and the King of the Sword Dynasty all thought that this was the Divine Queen's intention. But in reality, it was not so. Princess Huang Fuqing, who was standing next to the King of the Sacred Star Dynasty, frowned slightly. Her beautiful eyes were filled with complex emotions as she looked at the battle between Chu Hen and Huang Fuyang. This was also something that she did not expect. As a friend, she was naturally happy that Chu Hen's cultivation had increased so much. However, from the perspective of the royal family, Chu Hen should not have challenged Huang Fuyang. From a certain point of view, it could be said that Chu Hen was challenging the royal family's authority. Of course, Chu Hen was smart enough to use the Heaven List tournament as a stepping stone. In the Heaven List tournament, life and death were up to fate. Even if something were to happen, even the royal family would not be so shameless as to seek revenge. I didn't expect this arrogant brat to be so hard to deal with. He definitely has some strength. After all, he defeated Flame Shadow's Pang Ao. However, Huang Fuyang probably has not started using his full strength yet. Once it gets serious, Chu Hen will definitely be defeated. Of course, no one can fight against Huang Fuyang. What was originally a six-nation tournament had turned into an internal conflict within the Sacred Star Dynasty. Sigh, Chu Hen is too impulsive. What's the point of fighting for the championship? Yu Chenyu, who had returned to the giant elephant Marshall House's spectator area, sighed softly. However, in comparison, she lacked a bit of understanding towards Chu Hen. On the Tifeng province's side, Yi Yao's big eyes followed Chu Hen's movements. Brother Chu Hen has become so powerful. Looks like I have to work harder. Otherwise, I'll be too embarrassed to stand next to him in the future. Beside Yi Yao sat Yi Yu, who had just returned from the Seven Souls ancient kingdom ruins. However, Yi Yu's expression was a little absent-minded, and her eyes were a little blank. As for what she was thinking, however, she was the only one who was clear about it. Boom! The strong and fierce confrontation caused many areas of the fighting ring to collapse. Level 9 of the core transformation stage is just SOSO. Chu Hen said mockingly. This is just the beginning. Hee hee. As soon as Huang Fuyang's voice fell, a strong golden light erupted from his body. The surging golden light quickly gathered on his arms. Dragon capturing hand. Boom! In the next moment, Huang Fuyang pushed out his right hand, and a huge golden dragon claw appeared out of thin air. It attacked Chu Hen. The golden dragon claw looked like a real beast's claw. It was 5 to 6 meters wide, and its attack was extremely fast and powerful. The majestic aura caused the airflow in the surroundings to converge and started to oppress Chu Hen from all directions. Senior brother Huang Fuyang is starting to use his strength. That arrogant guy is going to be tortured. Seeing this scene, many of Huang Fuyang's supporters could already see the scene of Chu Hen being beaten black and blue all over. In the blink of an eye, the frightening dragon claw had already arrived in front of him. Chu Hen leaped up and flew into the sky above Huang Fuyang. Chu Hen's eyes turned cold, and a strange energy fluctuation spread out from his Naiwan palace. Immediately after, a dozen or so bright and beautiful runes condensed between Chu Hen's fingers in succession. What? Reiki energy? He's actually an inscription master? Chapter 3:11. He's actually an inscription master as well. Everyone's expression changed when they sensed the enormous amount of Reiki energy that was released from Chu Hen's body. He's a high-grade inscription master. He's almost at the 4th or 5th grade. This guy has really hidden his strength well. At this moment, the atmosphere in the entire competition area became restless. The geniuses from the various teams and the guests from the 6 dynasties were all shocked. Although a small number of people knew that Chu Hen was an inscription master, Chu Hen was only an intermediate inscription master at that time. His strength was equivalent to Wu Xiao, who was at the elemental establishing stage. However, in just a few short months, he had directly displayed the strength of a high-grade inscription master. This was really shocking. The people who were the most surprised were the students and mentors from Tensei Prefecture. For more than a year, they did not realize that Chu Hen was actually a genius who cultivated both martial arts and spirit. In such a huge imperial city with a population of more than 60 million people, there were only about 10 to 20 high-grade inscription masters. Now, a high-grade inscription master had appeared in Tensei Prefecture. This was definitely an explosive news that would cause a huge uproar in the entire imperial city. Song Chunglai laughed. He did not know what to do. He did not expect the student he recruited back then would actually have such a terrifying strength in the future. Tensei Prefecture had definitely made a huge profit. As for the other deans from the other high-ranked martial houses, each of them was gnashing their teeth in hatred. Back then, Chu Hen was rejected by 27 academies consecutively, and in the end, Song Chunglai had taken advantage of him. Initially, they thought Chu Hen's strength during the Earth-ranking battle was already shocking enough. However, they did not expect the even more shocking thing to happen next. At this moment, all the deans from the high-ranked martial houses only had one thought in their minds, and that was to personally strangle the mentor who was in charge of the recruitment. Buzz, buzz. More than a dozen mid-level and high-level runes instantly condensed on Chu Hen's fingertips. Their brilliance was resplendent, and they were as bright as the sun. Looking from afar, they looked like ancient and mysterious runes. Humph, so you're cultivating Reiki energy. No wonder you're so arrogant. Huang Fuyang sneered. But so what? Can a 5th-grade high-level inscription master still overturn the heavens? Dragon seizing hand, Huang Fuyang shouted. His sharp dragon claw once again emitted a sun-like light and attacked Chu Hen. The powerful aura was mixed with the sound of thunder. The space was faintly shaking. Purple wings of light unfurled behind Chu Hen's back, leaving a trail of afterimages in the air as he once again dodged his opponent's attack. Do you only know how to hide? Could it be that you don't know that it takes some time to set up a spirit array? A frivolous and sarcastic smile appeared on Chu Hen's face. Then he turned his left hand, and strands of Reiki energy climbed onto his fingertips. More than a dozen runes appeared. So fast, the audience was secretly shocked. Although there were not many inscription masters in the Sacred Star Dynasty, there were a lot of people who wanted to become inscription masters. In fact, many of them had studied hard with the mentality of becoming inscription masters, but the result was a huge blow to them. However, it was also because of this that there were still many people who had a better understanding of the profession of pattern scribes. Of course, there were some low-level and mid-level inscription masters among the audience. There were also a few high-level inscription masters hiding among the audience. With a single glance, the people from the inner court could tell that quite a few of the runes that Chu Hen had condensed were rather difficult. However, the speed at which Chu Hen released them was astonishingly fast. What kind of creature is this guy? His control of the runes is too skillful. Quite a few rune masters sitting in the audience shook their heads. With Chu Hen's control and usage of runes, without 5 to 6 years of hard work, it was impossible for him to reach this level. It would be fine if he was just a pure inscription master, but he had extraordinary achievements on the path of martial arts. This made the countless geniuses present blush with shame. In the blink of an eye, dozens of beautiful runes appeared between Chu Hen's fingers. Most of them were mid-level inscriptions, and there were only a few high-level inscriptions. Then, Chu Hen waved his hands, and the dazzling runes that lingered around his hands flew in all directions and scattered around the arena. Buzz, buzz. The space faintly trembled, and the dozens of runes fell into the water like raindrops. Faint ripples appeared in the air, and then disappeared without a trace, as if they had merged into the ground. In the next moment, a bright light bloomed on the ground. Streaks of dazzling flowing light connected with each other, forming a strange formation. Light runes flowed within the array, and an extremely restless power erupted from the arena. Huang Fuyang's face changed slightly. He didn't expect Chu Hen to set up the spiritual array so quickly. It was almost completed in the blink of an eye. Bastard, you're quite capable. Finished speaking, Huang Fuyang leapt up, flipped his hand, and raised his palm, wanting to attack Chu Hen. However, just at that moment, Chu Hen formed a strange seal with both of his hands and shouted in a deep voice. Lightning Soul Formation. Rumble. In an instant, an extremely shocking and powerful aura erupted from the array. Along with the sound of chi-chi, hundreds of silver lightning pillars soared into the sky from the arena and enveloped Huang Fuyang. The largest lightning pillar was as thick as a bucket, and the smallest one was as thick as a man's arm. The pupils of everyone below the stage trembled. The endless, dazzling brilliance caused everyone's eyes to feel a piercing pain. The snake-like lightning pillars struck Huang Fuyang's body, and the violent forces collided with each other, causing deafening sounds of thunder. In the blink of an eye, Huang Fuyang's body was covered with lightning arcs. Huang Fuyang let out a deep and furious roar. Although the powerful lightning was not enough to hurt him, it was enough to numb his body. It went straight to his meridians and bones, and it was quite painful. Looking at Huang Fuyang, who was trapped by the lightning net, everyone in the spectator stands was secretly shocked. The strength that Chu Hen had displayed was more and more unbelievable. What sort of unforeseen event would be waiting for them next? They didn't know. Bastard, you're courting death. Huang Fuyang's face was ashen, and his eyes flashed with a sinister light. He stretched out his right arm, and an aura that was more powerful than before erupted from him. A ferocious and surging palm energy was pushed out, and the vast energy was like a torrent as it headed toward Chu Hen. The palm attack of a 9th-level core transformation realm expert was enough to turn any 6th-level core transformation realm wuxio into meat paste. However, Chu Hen was not an ordinary 6th-level core transformation realm wuxio. Oomph. The corner of Chu Hen's eyes slightly narrowed, and a few runes formed by Reiki energy condensed on his palm. The runes quickly lined up, and a dazzling lightning erupted. The light of lightning enveloped Chu Hen's right arm. Immediately after, Chu Hen extended his right palm, which was radiating with lightning, and met the frightening palm energy head-on with a sudden thrust. Chi, his palm, which was covered in lightning, was like an invincible and sharp lightning blade. Under everyone's shocked gazes, the sharp lightning blade palm blade forcefully split the surging and mighty palm energy in half. The terrifying aura was like splitting the waves. Swoosh! Chu Hen split apart Huang Fuyang's attack with a palm blade that blossomed with the light of lightning. Then, with a sudden thrust, he shot down like an arrow towards his opponent. In the blink of an eye, Chu Hen arrived in front of Huang Fuyang, and his sharp palm blade was aimed at Huang Fuyang's throat. The speed of his attack was as fast as lightning. Huang Fuyang's eyes turned cold, and he moved backward. Hiss! The sound of the air being torn apart was extremely clear and sharp. Under the cautious gazes of the audience, Chu Hen's palm blade almost touched the middle of Huang Fuyang's neck and chest. The extremely imposing light of thunder and lightning emitted a rapid trembling sound of airwaves. Huang Fuyang's clothes were cut open, and at the same time, a wisp of red thread flew out. God! Chu Hen actually injured Huang Fuyang? The appearance of this scene caused everyone to widen their eyes, and all of their faces were filled with astonishment. If Huang Fuyang was just a little bit slower, he would have been killed. Bang! Huang Fuyang retreated dozens of meters away, and his feet heavily stepped on the ground, causing countless stones to fly. His face was gloomy, and his eyes were filled with cold, killing intent. Bastard! How dare you injure me? Hey, not only will I injure you, but I will also kill you today. Before his voice faded away, Chu Hen condensed dozens of runes and distributed them on the surface of the platform. The spirit array quickly activated. Immediately, several scarlet-red fire pythons appeared. They rolled up a scorching killing intent as they swept towards their opponents. Fire python formation. Oomph. How dare you use this kind of insignificant skill to embarrass yourself? Huang Fuyang did not say anything, and he directly launched a counterattack with a powerful aura. Then, Chu Hen continued to use the spiritual formation to support his attacks, and he used Reiki energy to attack Huang Fuyang. Water, spiritual formation. Whirlwind formation. Wood-piercing formation. Chu Hen was able to freely use all kinds of rune formations. Using the rune formations as support, Chu Hen continued to attack Huang Fuyang from the front. Even if it was a simple punch or a heavy palm, it still had a super strong killing power. Under the continuous attack of Chu Hen, Huang Fuyang was more on the defensive than on the offensive, and it seemed like he was being suppressed by Chu Hen. The crowd in the spectator stands was dazzled by all kinds of gorgeous colors. Damn! This is the combination of Reiki energy and true Yuan? So cool. I didn't expect the power of spirit and martial arts dual cultivation to be so powerful. What the audience had seen before was nothing more than pure spiritual formation power. Almost no one could launch an attack with a combination of two kinds of spiritual formation power. Now, the power that Chu Hen displayed was really eye-opening. Of course, the runes that Chu Hen laid out were all ordinary beginner and intermediate rune techniques. With his level as a grade 5 high-level spiritual formation master, he could easily set up these ordinary elementary and intermediate spiritual formation power. However, if he wanted to set up a high-level spiritual formation power, it would naturally not be that easy. After all, in front of wuxio, a spiritual formation master would never have enough time. However, this was also the smartest thing about Chu Hen. This was because he did not need to set up high-level spiritual formation power. He only needed some simple elementary and intermediate spiritual formation power to support him. Even the simplest entrapment formation would be able to restrict Huang Fuyang for a moment, and this short moment would be of great help to Chu Hen. The combination of spiritual formation and martial formation power was gorgeous and destructive. For the majority of the audience, this was definitely a visual feast. This guy is amazing. Chi Tung, the leader of the rock team, allowed a long sigh and shook his head lightly. On the Misty Wind team's side, Lu Chi pursed her red lips, a complicated look in her innocent eyes. I wonder if he has any other trump cards that he hasn't used? Looking at Chu Hen, who was calm and steady on the stage, Chu Hen's expression changed. Below the stage, Long Qingyang, Luo Mengshang, Long Xuanshuang, and the people from the Tensei Prefecture all heaved a sigh of relief. Although his advantage was not particularly obvious, it at least proved that Chu Hen did not act on impulse. On the Northern Pavilion, at this moment, the Six Dynasties and the Divine Empress all had different expressions on their faces. Previously, the sovereigns had thought that the Divine Empress had purposely arranged this battle to display the strength of the Sacred Star Dynasty's younger generation. But now, they saw that Chu Hen and Huang Fuyang's every move was fierce, and their attacks were swift and fierce. The intensity far surpassed any of the previous battles. This caused the rulers to change their previous thoughts. Even in the eyes of the monarchs, the battle in front of them could be said to be extremely exciting. The most helpless thing was that the two people on the stage were both from the Sacred Star Dynasty, which made them unhappy. Of course, being unhappy was just being unhappy. Since things had developed to this point, everyone present was looking forward to the final result. That Huang Fuyang is really amazing. After defending so many attacks, he still shows no signs of wavering. If Chu Hen can't take him down after a long time, he will be in trouble if his Reiki energy consumption can't keep up. The one who spoke was a middle-aged man on the east side of the spectator's stand. If someone else said this, the surrounding crowd would probably scoff. However, coming from this person's mouth, it was rather authoritative. There were less than 20 high-level tattooists in the Imperial City, and this middle-aged man was one of them. Great Mr. Yu, I wonder if you noticed a problem? At this moment, a cold female voice was heard. The person who spoke was a middle-aged woman dressed in red. She looked ordinary, but she had a noble temperament. Everyone knew that this woman was called Wen Hong, and she was also a high-ranked inscription master with some status. Oh, the middle-aged man called Great Yu turned to look at Wen Hong in surprise. Miss Wen Hong, why do you say that? Great Mr. Yu, did you not notice that every time Chu Hen released a portion of the runes, there is an excess? What? Chapter 3:12. Mr. Yuda, didn't you notice that a portion of the runes that Chu Hen releases are superfluous? What? Yuda frowned slightly. Then, he turned his gaze back to the arena and observed it carefully. Yuda and Wen Hong. These two were both well-known high-level rune masters in the Imperial City. The former was more proficient in the field of elixirs and weapons, while Wen Hong had a higher level of attainment in the field of spiritual arrays. The runes that Chu Hen continuously released belonged to the field of spiritual arrays. In comparison, Wen Hong was able to notice the problem. The conversation between the two advanced runes masters piqued the curiosity of the surrounding spectators. Yuda carefully observed the battle on the arena for a while before he nodded in agreement and looked at Wen Hong, who was not far away. That's right. In the quagmire formation earlier, a few of the runes that Chu Hen condensed were superfluous. The superfluous runes referred to the unnecessary runes. The quagmire formation, a basic formation, only required 43 runes. However, just now, Chu Hen had directly released 57 runes. In other words, 14 runes were superfluous and did not need to be used at all. The 14 runes were distributed on the arena and merged into the air. However, they did not release any energy. What's going on? Did he make a mistake? Yuda muttered softly. However, Wen Hong shook her head. Look at Chu Hen's usage of runes. It's not much inferior to us. Do you think he would make such a low-level mistake? When setting up the formation, he would release unnecessary runes. This was definitely superfluous behavior. Even a beginner rune master would not make a mistake like increasing the consumption of Reiki energy. It was even more impossible for Chu Hen, who was an advanced rune master, to do this. In other words, Chu Hen had done it on purpose. He had another purpose. However, what was his purpose? Yuta narrowed his eyes and fell into deep thought. After a short moment of thought, Yuta suddenly raised his brows and his eyes widened. His face was instantly filled with shock. He could not help but blurt out, "He's setting up a formation." "That's right," Wen Hong affirmed. Her eyes were similarly filled with many complicated emotions. His words were like a wake-up call. Yuta couldn't help sucking in a cold breath. When he looked at the youthful silhouette on the stage again, his eyes were filled with shock. How many extra runes has he condensed? 239. Wen Hong gave him the exact number and continued, "Moreover, every single one of them is a high-grade rune." Yuda's expression changed again and again. Even his hands couldn't help but tremble. 239 high-grade runes? The younger generation will surpass the older. The younger generation will surpass us in time. At this moment, Yu Datsai completely understood that the elementary and intermediate talisman arts that Chu Hen had set up earlier weren't to assist Chu Hen in his attacks, but to provide cover. The high-grade runes were hidden within the runes. Chu Hen's technique was extremely brilliant, and he was extremely cautious. Even if his opponent was not a pattern artist, Chu Hen was still very steady. He advanced step by step and was not anxious for success. It was hard to imagine that a young man who wasn't even 20 years old could actually have such a meticulous plan. Of course, this was merely Yuda and Wen Hong's conjecture. Whether or not things would turn out the way they thought would soon be revealed. Boom! A magnificent energy shockwave exploded on the stage, and all kinds of dazzling brilliance bloomed like fireworks in the night sky. The battle between Chu Hen and Huang Fuyang was getting more and more intense. Sparks flew everywhere, and the sky darkened. The cold and powerful shockwaves came one after another, shaking heaven and earth. The two of them fought from the ground to the sky, and there were obvious wounds on their bodies. They were as ferocious as two demonic beasts. "Huang Fuyang, I'm going to skin you alive today." Chu Hen's attack was fierce. His right leg, which was surrounded by a dense black aura, created a powerful force and fiercely kicked Huang Fuyang's chest. Bang! A ball of golden light blossomed, and a small illusory dragon shadow appeared in front of Huang Fuyang. The illusory dragon shadow was like a protective demonic beast. It dragged a string of beautiful golden cyclones in the air and blocked most of Chu Hen's attack. Even so, the extremely powerful force still forced Huang Fuyang to fly back nearly 100 meters. The audience below the stage were all secretly shocked. It was unknown how many times Huang Fuyang had been forced back by Chu Hen. Originally, many people were mocking Chu Hen for overestimating himself and courting death. But now, Chu Hen had directly slapped their faces with his actions. "Chu Hen, you can do it. I will always support you." "Me too. Senior Chu Hen will definitely win." Li Hui shouted. Zhou Lu also stood up and shouted, "Chu Hen, you can do it." Then, all the teachers and students in Tensei Prefecture became extremely excited. They all raised their arms and cheered for Chu Hen. However, Huang Fuyang's supporters did not want to be outdone. "Humph, you want to win Senior Huang Fu? Stop dreaming. Senior Huang Fu, it's time to end the competition. Let them see your true strength. Let them know who is the number one among the younger generation of the Sacred Star Dynasty." The cheers from both sides pushed the atmosphere of the competition to a climax. The heavenless competition of the Six Nations had become a private battlefield between Chu Hen and Huang Fuyang. Buzz! Huang Fuyang's murderous aura soared to the sky. His cold eyes revealed two rays of ferocious light. "Bitch, you were lucky last time in the Li Valley. Today, I will make sure you die without a burial place." Then a majestic aura surged in all directions. Huang Fuyang stood proudly in the sky. His body was filled with extraordinary dragon aura. A boundless sacred light burst out from his body, and a mountainous pressure suppressed the entire place. Humph! A playful smile appeared on Chu Hen's face. Dense True Yuan and Reiki energy were released at the same time. I said that if I don't die this time, I will pay you back double in the future. Huang Fuyang, today is the day that I collect my debt. Ha ha you. Huang Fuyang laughed arrogantly. Then he stopped laughing and his eyes turned cold. His powerful aura was like an erupting volcano. Wrath of Dragon Spirit. Roar. An earth-shattering dragon roar exploded in everyone's ears. The next moment, the small dragon shadow around Huang Fuyang's body released its divine might. Along with a dazzling light, a golden dragon that was more than 100 meters long soared into the sky. It shook the sky. A piercingly cold wind swept across the land. Looking at the domineering golden dragon from afar, everyone had a solemn expression on their faces. The elites of the Sacred Star Dynasty's Dark Team were ready to set up a barrier so that the emperors and the Divine Empress wouldn't be disturbed. Bitch, so what if your physique is strong? I want to see how you're going to deal with this attack of mine. Roar. As soon as Huang Fuyang's voice fell, the majestic dragon shadow swayed its huge body and dashed toward Chu Hen. The wind blew and the clouds surged. The majestic aura was like a ferocious beast that could stir the sky. The space trembled violently, and Chu Hen's aura was instantly suppressed. Long Qingyang, Luo Mengshang, Shilan, Yi Yao, Mu Feng, and the others' faces changed. The dragon shadow was already in front of them, but Chu Hen still didn't move. It was really strange. Is that guy scared out his wits? Heh. Once senior brother Huang Fuyang uses his strength, he will be exposed. I thought that I would need to use the power of the 7-star scripture, but it seems like I don't have to. Before the people outside could finish their words, something shocking happened. Rumble. Suddenly, a bright silver splendor exploded in the sky below Chu Hen and Huang Fuyang. Countless rays of silver light suddenly soared into the sky. It was as if it was a stream of light that had been tracing back 1,000 years. It was exceptionally dazzling. What's going on? Everyone's faces turned pale with fright. The dazzling silver light connected from head to tail, and in an instant, a huge array formation that spanned more than half of the arena appeared in the sky. The majestic aura of the array filled the entire arena. From afar, it looked like a huge silver disc. That is, a high-grade spiritual array? Holy shit, when did he set it up? The entire arena was shocked. Everyone's eyes widened, and their faces were filled with disbelief. It was undoubtedly a powerful high-grade array, but it would take a lot of time to set up such a powerful array. However, before everyone could even see the runes, Chu Hen had already completed it. Isn't this a little too inconceivable? Yuda and Wenhong, the two famous senior rune masters, couldn't help but stand up from their seats. Just as I thought. Yuda clenched his fists and furrowed his brows. Seeing Yu Da's excited reaction, the surrounding people looked at him in confusion. However, everyone didn't have the time to ask any questions. The formation that had appeared on the stage seemed to have released an extremely terrifying aura of slaughter. Rumble. The spiritual power of heaven and earth stirred, and the endless silver light rapidly gathered together, forming countless solid sword shadows. The sword shadows filled the sky with murderous aura. Chu Hen formed a seal with one hand, and his star-like eyes revealed a hint of determination. Myriad Sword Killing Array, activate. Chapter 3:13. Myriad Sword Trap and Kill Array, activate. Chu Hen formed a seal with one hand, and a sharp glint flashed in his star-like eyes. As soon as his voice fell, the high-grade killing array, suspended in the air above the arena, blossomed with a dazzling radiance. Boundless killing intent swept across the world. The countless condensed sword shadows were as gorgeous as arrows that had been flying for thousands of years. They covered the sky and the earth as they attacked the domineering and ferocious giant golden dragon shadow. It was a shocking scene, just like the 10,000 swords returning to origin. The sword rain that filled the sky was as resplendent as silver light. It came wave after wave, crashing into the dragon's shadow like a sword tide. Boom! Bang! A violent energy explosion erupted in the air above the competition area. Tens of thousands of silver sword rain and the golden dragon's shadow collided and intersected. Dazzling radiance burst out. The sky turned dark, and the sun and moon lost their light. The scene in front of him was like tens of thousands of archers surrounding and killing a terrifying, ferocious beast. The dense killing intent made people tremble in fear, and chills ran down their spines. The powerful aura of the dragon spirit was forcefully suppressed. Oh my God! The audience below the arena were all dumbfounded, and their faces were pale. Isn't this Lei Yuan's formation? A young man from the Heaven's Net team asked in confusion. Lei Yuan? The genius inscription master from St. Bell City? Yiwu Gui, the disciple of the Ghost Spear King, who had personally witnessed Lei Yuan using the 10,000 sword trap and kill array to deal with Chu Hen, was shocked, and his eyes trembled. Compared to the 10,000 sword trap and kill array that Lei Yuan had set up, the killing power released by Chu Hen was many times stronger. Who is this guy? At this moment, Yiwu Gui, who had just woken up, also looked at the scene in front of him with a complicated gaze. Yiwu Gui sat paralyzed in the resting area of the contestants' area, his back leaning against the wall. His wounds had stopped bleeding, but his aura was still extremely weak. Looking at the two people fighting in the sky, Yiwu Gui's face was filled with unwillingness and deep hatred. Misty Wind, Lu Qi, Giant Rock Chi Tung, and the other geniuses who were reduced to spectators were all in disbelief. The energy that Chu Hen had unleashed had truly refreshed their bottom line time and time again. Great Mr. Yu, Miss Wen Hong, what exactly is going on? The puzzled crowd asked one after another. Big Yu let out a long sigh of relief, shook his head with deep meaning, and said, from the very beginning, Chu Hen had already started to lay this formation. What? Just now, every time he used a rune technique, he secretly condensed more than 10 other runes and kept them in reserve. Hence, he had been continuously releasing some basic runic techniques. On the surface, it looked like he was assisting in the attack, but in fact, he was using this killing formation as a cover. Therefore, before this, Chu Hen had already stealthily prepared this killing formation. Wah! After listening to eldest Yu's explanation, the entire crowd was in an uproar. In everyone's hearts, other than shock, there was still shock. This Chu Hen's methods were too shocking. I have to say that even someone like me, who has been training hard for more than a decade, is not as proficient as that youth. Wen Hong's voice was filled with guilt. Eldest Yu also shook his head with a bitter smile. I'm also ashamed. At this moment, the two famous rune artists were full of praise for Chu Hen, which made the others have other thoughts. Was Huang Fuyang really going to die here today? Not very likely. Roar! At this moment, the dragon spirit's aura was completely suppressed to its lowest point. Its layers of defense collapsed, and in an instant, the incomparably sharp and dazzling sword images directly pierced through the dragon spirit's huge body. Killing intent filled the sky, shocking everyone. The densely packed silver sword images were like streaks of light that pierced through tofu. They continuously pierced the dragon spirit's interior and rapidly flew out from the other end. The piercingly cold power was unstoppable. Under the all-encompassing sword rain, the huge dragon spirit was directly shattered. Rumble! This! Everyone was shocked. Their eyes were filled with disbelief as the domineering and ferocious dragon spirit was like a fierce beast that had been pierced by thousands of arrows. Subsequently, it dissipated between heaven and earth. Then, the endless silver sword rain turned around and swept up a terrifying killing intent as it attacked Huang Fuyang, who was in the rear area. Facing the dazzling sword rain that came one after another, Huang Fuyang's face was ashen and the veins on his forehead were bulging. Hee, if this is your final trump card, then I'm very sorry to tell you that your lowly life can't escape from my palm. Rumble! As his voice fell, a torrential silver radiance was also released from Huang Fuyang's body. The powerful star energy covered Huang Fuyang's body and spread out in all directions. A mountain-like aura swept out in all directions, and the surface of his skin was suffused with a sparkling and translucent luster. 7-star power. Looking at this scene, the audience couldn't help but recall the scene of the Heaven Net Group's night, Unsley being defeated. The power of the 7-star sacred scripture could absolutely be called terrifying. Would Chu Hen be able to take on Huang Fuyang's ultimate trump card? Senior brother Huang Fuyang is going to use the 7-star power. Chu Hen will definitely die. I'm afraid he will become the second knight, Unsley. He asked for it. Everyone in the spectator stands had different emotions. Those who supported Huang Fuyang had sufficient information, while those who supported Chu Hen had grave expressions on their faces. Buzz buzz. At the same time, Chu Hen's eyes turned cold and he moved his right palm. Clang! A metallic sound was heard, and a black saber appeared in his hand. Limitless Fong. In the Tensei Prefecture, Shilan's beautiful eyes rippled, and she unconsciously clenched her jade-like hands. Boom! In the next moment, a domineering, tsunami-like power suddenly surged out from Chu Hen's body. A dense black light covered the sky and quickly surrounded Chu Hen, forming a 100-meter wide cyclone. The endless black cyclones turned the sky and the earth upside down, resembling the vast nebula vortex before a storm. What a domineering aura! What kind of move is this? Everyone was even more shocked. On one side, the starlight was incomparably holy, and on the other side, the darkness was covering the sky. The overwhelming silver sword shadows were suppressed by Huang Fuyang's aura. Is it that move? In the northern pavilion, Princess Huang Fuqing's beautiful eyes narrowed and her red lips slightly moved as she softly murmured. The 6 sovereigns, as well as the divine empress and the others, all revealed serious expressions. The wind was blowing and the clouds were scudding. Ha die! Huang Fuyang's face revealed a cruel smile. All-cave flash, shocking the heavens. Buzz! In an instant, Huang Fuyang's body burst out with a radiance that resembled the radiance of the sun. Along with the rumbling sounds of thunder, Huang Fuyang was like a meteorite that descended from the heavens. His speed was so fast that he was like a shooting star. His attack was as strong as a mountain. Bang, bang, bang. The 100-meter-wide silver starfall meteor was unstoppable. It surged forward and swept away all the sharp sword shadows in front of it. They were all shattered by the terrifying impact. The meteorite pierced through the sky and triggered the power of heaven and earth. At the same time, Chu Hen's aura also increased by several times. Endless black light rapidly flowed into the limitless Fong. The joyful black light was unusually restless. Buzz! The space violently trembled as a black saber light directly soared into the sky along the limitless Fong's blade. Everyone's eyes trembled. Looking from afar, Chu Hen seemed to be holding a 100-meter long black light beam with an incomparably domineering aura surging out. Could it be that you think you're invincible just because you've obtained the 7-star scripture? Chu Hen flew into a rage. Circles of black air swirled around the black pillar of light in his hand. Limitless demonic slash, along with Chu Hen's shocking roar. He leapt out, raised the bitingly cold and domineering limitless Fong high up, and directly slashed towards a silver meteor that was flying towards him. At this moment, everyone present widened their eyes. No one wanted to miss the scene that was about to unfold. On one side was the unstoppable silver meteorite, and on the other side was the domineering saber light. Limitless demonic slash. Before the Heavenly List tournament, Huang fucking specially gave Chu Hen a saber technique. Then, under everyone's solemn and shocked gazes, the black saber in Chu Hen's hand slashed down forcefully. It swept up a monstrous aura and slashed at the silver meteorite. Bang! A deafening sound exploded above everyone's head as 2 destructive forces collided with each other. An unprecedented raging storm swept across the entire competition area at an extremely fast speed. The silver meteorite, transformed by Huang Fu Hao and the black saber in Chu Hen's hand, began the fiercest battle. The two collided at close range. One was shrouded in starlight, while the other was shrouded in black light. Chapter 314. Rumble. The Heavenly List tournament was full of surprises. At this moment, everyone in the spectator stands was staring at the area in the sky. An unprecedented raging energy storm swept in all directions, covering the sky and covering the earth, shrouding above everyone's head. The scene that everyone had anticipated did not appear. Chu Hen was not able to follow in Yi Bugui's footsteps. With a tyrannical, limitless demonic slash, Chu Hen's entire body was surrounded by a dense black light. With his own strength, he forcefully withstood the power of the silver meteorite that had a terrifying, destructive power. Chu Hen used the limitless Fong to block in front of him, and the rapid airflow surged. The fierce and domineering blade aura constantly bloomed with vigorous airwaves, forming a layer of extremely wide black arc light curtain. The huge black arc light curtain was like a stable, true energy shield, fiercely clashing with the terrifying silver meteorite. The silver brilliance and the black light curtain shook the heaven and earth, causing the entire sky to distort. Who would win? Who would have a last laugh? Everyone's heart was in their throats, and they couldn't help but stand up from their seats. Boom! Suddenly, a particularly violent, deafening sound exploded in the sky. An incomparably powerful and vigorous aftershock spread out in all directions like ripples on the surface of water. Everyone's heart suddenly trembled. At the same time that the large arc-shaped black light screen in front of Chu Hen collapsed and exploded, the extremely destructive silver meteor in front of him also exploded like a star. The endless silver, sacred light seemed to have encountered the impact of a hurricane, directly blooming between heaven and earth. The chaotic aftershock swept in all directions, and the sky was filled with silver light beams and black saber waves, shrouding the entire sky above the competition area. The barrier erected by the experts of the Sacred Star Dynasty's Dark Elite team was constantly being attacked, and the violent turbulence was like ripples on the surface of water. Heavens! Chu Hen actually blocked Huang Fu Yang's attack. What a mother asterisk cur! Everyone couldn't help but widen their eyes as they watched the silver meteor's power continuously dissipate. Especially Yi Bugui, who was sitting paralyzed by the wall at the back of the Heaven Net team. His trembling eyes were filled with indescribable disbelief. He knew how powerful Huang Fuyang's attack was. However, Chu Hen, with the strength of a 6th-level core transformation stage martial artist, had withstood this attack head-on. Such a shocking scene really caused everyone to be extremely shocked. In an instant, Huang Fuyang, who was within the silver holy light, appeared in front of everyone's line of sight again under the astonished gazes of the spectators. The distance between the two of them was very close. Hee, you do have some ability. Huang Fuyang's face was gloomy and ferocious. His body glowed with a brilliant golden luster. Humph! Chu Hen's eyes emitted 2 cold rays of light, and a powerful saber momentum stacked up. Kacha! The last layer of true essence barrier between the two quietly shattered. Chu Hen flew up and thrust out his black saber. A bone-chilling aura rolled up as it chopped towards his opponent. Bang! A circle of scattered true essence exploded like a bubble. The limitless Fong, which was spitting out a strange black light, unstoppably pierced into Huang Fuyang's true essence barrier. Then, it pierced into Huang Fuyang's chest. Hiss! The sound of a sharp weapon piercing through flesh was extremely ear-piercing, and a burst of fresh blood flew out. Everyone's expression changed dramatically, and their hearts trembled. Everyone could only watch as Chu Hen's black saber stabbed into Huang Fuyang's chest. The sharp saber momentum directly split open Huang Fuyang's flesh. However, in the next moment, a dull sound reverberated in everyone's ears. They saw Huang Fuyang's right palm ruthlessly imprint on Chu Hen's chest. A mass of black and gold energy waves spread out with the two of them as the center. A stream of blood quickly flowed out from the corner of Chu Hen's mouth. His handsome face became slightly pale due to the surging of his blood. Exchanging injury for injury, everyone in the room felt their hearts tremble. Huang Fuyang was indeed a famous, ruthless person. At the same time, no one dared to underestimate Chu Hen anymore. He was definitely a perverted person. Huang Fuyang didn't care about the injury on his chest at all, and a sinister smile appeared on his face. Stinking brat, you're dead. Buzz, buzz. After saying that, Huang Fuyang's right palm that was imprinted on Chu Hen's chest suddenly turned into a claw. The sharp claw directly pierced through Chu Hen's clothes and embedded into his flesh. The intense pain spread all over Chu Hen's body like it was on fire. Under the impact of the surging hidden force, Chu Hen was unable to cut the limitless Fong into his opponent's body in the slightest. Moreover, the limitless tooth seemed to be stuck in a stone wall. He couldn't even pull it out. Then, Huang Fuyang raised his left hand, and with a buzz, a spiral-shaped golden vortex instantly formed into an incomparably sharp spike in his palm. Long Qingyang, Luo Mengshang, Xilan, Mu Feng, and the others' expressions changed when they saw the glittering spike in Huang Fuyang's hand. Their eyes were filled with panic. Go to hell. Huang Fuyang raised the spike and directly stabbed at Chu Hen's head. The hurried sound of breaking wind whizzed past. Chu Hen's deep pupils reflected the endless sharp spikes. His right hand quickly left the hilt of the limitless Fong. Turning his hand into a claw, it flew out. Bang! There was another dull tremor, and the hearts of the people below tightened once more. Huang Fuyang's spike stopped less than 2 centimeters away from Chu Hen's forehead. Chu Hen's right hand firmly grasped Huang Fuyang's wrist like a pair of iron pincers. This successive scene almost caused countless people present to have a heart attack from fright. It was too thrilling. Everyone's nerves were stretched taut, and their palms were sweaty. You're really tenacious? Huang Fuyang became more and more arrogant, and his bloodthirsty eyes were surging with killing intent. I have to say, I really admire you more and more. You're the first person to force me, Huang Fuyang, to this extent. It's not a good thing to talk too much nonsense. The corner of Chu Hen's eyes narrowed, and a dense black light quickly rose from his body. I promise that this will be the last time you'll hear me talk nonsense. The smile on Huang Fuyang's face disappeared, and his eyes were filled with killing intent. The sharp spike in his left hand emitted a cold light, and an extreme aura of death surged out. A violent energy fluctuation came from the tip of the spike, and the space was slightly distorted. Not good. Mu Feng, who was sitting on the Tensei Prefecture's seats, could not help but exclaim. Many of Chu Hen's friends and relatives were panicking. Huang Fuyang's supporters had cruel smiles on their faces. Sure enough, Huang Fuyang was the one who had the last laugh. It's over. Along with Huang Fuyang's shout, the spike directly released a ray of death light. Buzz! However, at this moment, Chu Hen's eyes emitted 2 rays of cold light. He suddenly dodged to the side, and his other hand instantly let go of the limitless tooth handle. Then, he grabbed Huang Fuyang's left shoulder. You're the one who should end this. An ear-splitting roar came out of Chu Hen's mouth, and in a split second, a monstrous black light suddenly erupted like a volcano. His anger soared to the sky. One of Chu Hen's hands grabbed Huang Fuyang's wrist, and the other grabbed his shoulder. The surging black light poured out, and Chu Hen's veins burst out. He exerted force with both of his hands and forcefully pulled to both sides. Get lost! Bang! A loud explosion resounded, and the red rain and fresh blood danced in the air. Everyone's eyeballs almost popped out of their sockets. Huang Fuyang's left arm was forcefully torn in half by Chu Hen. His elbow had split open from the top, and warm blood was glaring to the eyes. Chu Hen's anger was like that of a fiend god. His methods were ruthless, cold, and merciless. Rumble. Looking at the scene in front of them, everyone's mind seemed to have been struck by lightning. Everyone was so shocked that they didn't know what to do. Even the rulers of the dynasties in the northern pavilion couldn't help but stand up from their seats. The divine empress unconsciously clenched her fists, and she couldn't maintain her calm anymore. Endless pain spread throughout his body, and Huang Fuyang's pupils shrank to the size of a needle. His twisted face was filled with endless anger, resentment, and hatred. Little animal, I'm going to tear you into pieces. Huang Fuyang was furious, and his eyes were about to spit fire. Do you think you have the ability to do so? Chu Hen raised his hand and grabbed at the limitless tooth embedded in his opponent's chest. He pulled it out with a raise of his hand, and along with the blood that spurted out, Chu Hen raised his hand and slashed out with his blade. That bitingly cold and domineering blade, aura, once again rushed in front of his opponent. Bang! A powerful black light bloomed in the sky, and under the powerful impact, Huang Fuyang was directly blown down from the sky. Along with a mournful scream, a long and narrow blade cut through Huang Fuyang's chest and abdomen. Everyone felt their scalp go numb, and chills ran down their spines. Some of them even felt their legs tremble, and they almost fell to the ground. Bang! Huang Fuyang fell to the ground like a sandbag, and the rubble flew up like moths. A huge hole appeared on the ground, and it was visible to the naked eye. Blood was everywhere, and he looked like a dog. Many people felt like they were in a dream. Defeated. Huang Fuyang was defeated. Chapter 315. The Six-Nation War, the heavenly ranking battle. The huge competition area had already sunk into an unprecedented silence. However, in the hearts of everyone in the competition area, a monstrous wave that could not be calmed was set off. The strongest among the younger generation of the Saint Star dynasty had been defeated. In just a short while, he stood proudly at the highest point and completely crushed Tian Luo's knight. He looked down on everyone, and the position of the champion was within his reach. In just a blink of an eye, this genius, who was as dazzling as a star, had fallen from the peak to the bottom of the valley. Moreover, his face was bruised and swollen. It was extremely miserable. All of this was caused by one person. When they left the valley, Huang Fuyang had almost killed Chu Hen. Chu Hen had said that if he did not die, he would repay him double. In this situation, how could the revenge that Huang Fuyang had suffered be doubled? No one had expected the outcome to be like this. The scene where Chu Hen tore off Huang Fuyang's arm in front of everyone like a fiend would be an indelible mark in everyone's memory. Who would have thought that a mere Chu Hen would possess such terrifying strength? In the sky, the young figure was as sharp as a spear. The injuries on his body did not make him look battered. Instead, it made him look even more heroic. On the other hand, Huang Fuyang, who was lying in the ruins on the stage, had a weak aura. His body was drenched in blood, and the bones in his broken left arm could be seen. It was a ghastly sight. There were 2 wounds on his chest. One was deep, and the other was shallow. The deep wound was so deep that his bones could be seen. It was extremely glaring. Swoosh! Suddenly, Chu Hen flew down from high up in the sky. An endless, ice-cold, killing intent was released from his body without the slightest concealment. What? Everyone in the audience was greatly shocked. Chu Hen actually wanted to take Huang Fuyang's life. Seeing that Huang Fuyang still had a breath left, he was going to give the final blow. Lying in the ruins, Huang Fuyang's lifeless eyes were filled with panic and hatred. You dare? What's the point of keeping you alive? Chu Hen's mouth curled into a mocking smile. However, just as Chu Hen swung his saber, an extremely fierce gust of wind suddenly attacked. Stinking brat, get lost for this king. A thunderous roar shook the eardrums of the audience, causing them to feel pain. Accompanied by a whirlwind of sand and pebbles, a powerful palm force directly attacked Chu Hen. Chu Hen's heart was startled. Caught off guard, he was directly hit by the palm energy that suddenly flew over. Bang! Chu Hen's body trembled as he flipped over and fell to the ground. He spat out a mouthful of blood, and his already pale face became even paler. What was going on? Everyone was astounded, and then they saw a handsome and extraordinary middle-aged man appear on the arena. Prince Nan, this. In an instant, the audience burst into an uproar. That middle-aged man was 8 feet tall, dressed luxuriously, and had a noble temperament. He was the uncle of the current emperor and also Huang Fu Yang's father, Prince Nan Huang Fu Pingyun. Hee. This show is getting more and more interesting. In the northern pavilion, the Tian Luo emperor rubbed his chin and said with interest, "This is the first time someone has broken the rules of the Heavenless Tournament. The Sacred Star Empire, what a joke." The Flame Shadow Emperor also mocked. The other emperors also had a frivolous look on their faces. The Saint Empress's face was covered with a layer of frost. This was the first time she was angry. Huang Fu Hao swallowed his saliva, but he didn't dare to say anything. Huang Fu Qing's eyebrows were slightly knitted, and her beautiful eyes were solemn and complicated. She knew very well that the Saint Empress was angry not because the Prince Nan broke the rules of the Heavenless Tournament. On the arena, Prince Nan's face was gloomy and ashen. His eyes that were about to spit fire were like 2 blades, wishing he could kill Chu Hen on the spot. Never in his wildest dreams would he have imagined that his son would lose to someone who came from the lowest-ranked Heavenly Star Martial House. If he lost, then so be it. Chu Hen had crippled Huang Fu Yang's left hand in front of everyone. How could Huang Fu Pingyun not be angry? Cough, cough. Chu Hen coughed out blood from the corner of his mouth. Long Qingyang, Luo Mengshang, Long Xuan, and the rest were all shocked. Without saying anything further, they wanted to go up and check on the other party's injuries. However, Chu Hen raised his hand to stop them. "Don't come up. This is the Heavenless Tournament, and the competition isn't over yet. Stay down there." His cold voice was piercingly cold. Long Qingyang and the rest's expressions changed, but they couldn't help but stop moving forward. "Chu Hen," Long Xuan called out. "Shut up. The emperors of the 6 dynasties are all here. And so is the Divine Queen. Do you still want to break the rules of the Heavenless Tournament?" Chu Hen pointed at the mulberry tree and scolded the locust tree. At this moment, everyone present was touched by Chu Hen's unyielding character. Even if the man standing in front of him was the South Prince of the Sacred Star Dynasty, who was below only 1 person and above tens of thousands of people, Chu Hen's body was still upright and unyielding. Lu Qi, Qi Teng, and the geniuses from the other dynasties all shook their heads in amazement. "This man is so handsome." Lu Qi pouted and let out a sigh of relief. Her pair of innocent big eyes had a strange light in them. Chu Hen looked at Huang Fu Pingyun fearlessly and said in a deep voice, "May I know why the Prince Nan suddenly came up to the arena? Based on your age, I'm afraid you've long passed the age to participate in the Heavenless Tournament, right? You?" Huang Fu Pingyun's expression became even uglier. No one had ever dared to mock him like this. Just as Huang Fu Pingyun was about to lose his temper, the Divine Queen's indifferent voice sounded, "Prince Nan, all the emperors are here. Don't be rude." Huang Fu Pingyun was shocked. He immediately clenched his teeth and suppressed his anger. Then, he looked back at the pavilion in the north and bowed to the Sacred Star Emperor. "Huang Fu Hao, Your Majesty, I will definitely find Your Majesty and the Divine Queen later to apologize." Without waiting for Huang Fu Hao's reply, Huang Fu Pingyun picked up Huang Fu Liang, who was half dead, and quickly left the arena. Before he left, he didn't forget to glare angrily at Chu Hen. "Wah!" The audience was in an uproar, but everyone was whispering to each other and discussing in low voices. "The Prince Nan is being ridiculous this time. It's understandable that he wants to save his son, but he can't hurt Chu Hen. So let's talk less. Even His Majesty doesn't dare to punish him, so why should we?" That was a close call. I almost peed my pants. Although there were countless people present who felt that it was unfair for Chu Hen, because of Prince Nan's status, no one dared to speak up for him. However, after the commotion, orderly cheers began to sweep across the entire arena. "Chu Hen champion! Chu Hen champion!" Cheers and cheers erupted from the Heavenly Star Martial House's side first, and soon after, the entire competition area was filled with cheers. However, this commotion was far less than when Huang Fu Liang defeated Yibu Gui, Flame Shadow, Giant Rock, Heaven Luo, Misty Wind, and Sword Dynasty's geniuses, who were originally dead silent, started to stir again. On the pavilion in the north, the emperors looked at each other and saw the schadenfreude in each other's eyes. Hee, champion? I don't think so. The Emperor of Heaven Luo rubbed his chin and laughed mockingly. The Divine Empress is right. Until the end, no one can come to a conclusion. Huang Fu Hao, Huang Fu Qing, and the Divine Empress all had ugly expressions on their faces. The fight between Chu Hen and Huang Fuyang had already caused quite a few injuries. However, it was still not a problem for him to secure his position as the champion. However, Prince Nan's palm had caused Chu Hen's injuries to worsen. In addition to the exhaustion from the fight just now, his fighting strength would definitely decrease. In this state, how could Chu Hen suppress the restlessness of the other geniuses? After all, there were still a few rank 8 core transformation realm experts in each team, especially Misty Wind Team's Lu Qi, who was the only remaining leader-level expert. The position of champion that should have been in his hands was about to be thrown away. This made the Divine Empress very angry. She was angry at Chu Hen, but she was also angry at Prince Nan. One of them was fighting for the position of champion from Huang Fuyang's hands, which caused the situation to become superfluous. On the other hand, Prince Nan had severely injured Chu Hen, causing Chu Hen to lose the strength to defend the position of champion. Today, if the Sacred Star team could not win the Heaven List for the 3rd time in a row, Chu Hen and Prince Nan would have to bear the responsibility. The atmosphere below the stage was getting more and more chaotic. The people of the Sacred Star dynasty, who had seen the situation clearly, had ugly expressions on their faces. Is there anyone who wants to challenge Chu Hen? Lu Tong asked loudly. Although Lu Tong did not want to ask this question and wanted to directly announce the result of the competition, he still had to follow the procedure. The geniuses of each team were hesitant. Looking at the young man with a weak aura on the stage, many geniuses could not suppress the restlessness in their hearts. Champion. Everyone wanted it. However, Chu Hen's calm face and eyes that did not have a single ripple caused everyone to have some apprehension in their hearts. Everyone had seen his strength with their own eyes, which made them waver. If there is no one else, then I will immediately announce that the champion of the Heaven List battle is, but right at this moment, a sharp figure had turned into a streak of light as he leapt onto the stage. Everyone was shocked. Finally, someone could not help but make a move. Wow. However, when everyone saw the appearance of the person, there was an uproar. It's Situ Feng, another member of the Sacred Star team. What the hell? Situ Feng, the #1 person in Tifeng province. Previously, in the Li Valley, there was also a conflict between him and Chu Hen. At that time, Chu Hen killed Ren Han, and Situ Feng did not let Chu Hen off. When Situ Feng made a move, countless people of the Sacred Star dynasty could not help but curse their stupidity. At this time, the Sacred Star team should unite against the outside world, but Situ Feng still wanted to continue to weaken the strength of the team. Even a person with a good temper would be very angry at this moment. The geniuses of the Sacred Star team are really unexpected. In the North Pavilion, Tian Luo King looked like he was watching a good show. The eyes of the other kings also lit up. If there was a glimmer of hope for the Sacred Star team to retain the championship position, now it seems that there is almost no hope. Very simple, the next 3 situations will occur. The first is that Chu Hen will go down to rest. This also shows that Chu Hen really can't hold on any longer, and the next championship battle will be completed by other teams. The second situation, Chu Hen wins against Situ Feng and continues to successfully defend the ring. Such a price will only make his injuries continue to worsen, and the other people will have a greater chance. The third situation, Situ Feng wins. However, if Situ Feng wins, how can his strength suppress the others? So, no matter what, the championship of the Sacred Star dynasty will almost be returned. On the battle stage, Situ Feng stared at Chu Hen's pale face with a playful gaze. I know, now there are countless people calling me stupid, but I will soon tell everyone, this championship is in my hands, Situ Feng's hands. No one can take it away from me. His confident words spread, causing everyone present to be startled. Could it be that this Situ Feng is also hiding a powerful trump card? After all, he is the #1 person in Tifeng province. Situ Feng's confident look soon made many people look forward to it. If the other party really has the strength to compete for the championship position, it is not impossible. Chu Hen's handsome eyebrows slightly raised. The corner of his mouth slightly raised a touch of a faint arc. He tilted his head and calmly said, "I will give you a chance. Get out of here." His indifferent tone, no one could hear the slightest emotional fluctuations. Everyone was not surprised. Chu Hen still has the confidence to say such words? What exactly is he relying on? Courting death. Buzz. His voice hadn't even faded when Situ Feng raised his arms and 2 balls of dazzling, true elemental force burst out with an astonishing and powerful aura. I will let you experience my true strength. However, when they saw Situ Feng's imposing manner, as well as the majestic aura released by the opposite party, many people's eyes lit up, especially the people of Tifeng province. They were pleasantly surprised. I didn't expect that Situ Feng has already reached the peak of the 8th stage of core transformation realm. Haha, there's really a glimmer of hope at the darkest of willows and flowers. Situ Feng will win. I am optimistic that you will become the champion. Swish. The next moment, Situ Feng shot out like an arrow from a bowstring. His surging and oppressive aura rushed towards Chu Hen to crush him. His ice-cold eyes revealed a fiery and fierce light. The championship position of the heavenly list battle is mine. The distance between the two of them instantly narrowed, and a biting cold wind rose from all directions. Facing the menacing Situ Feng, Chu Hen stood motionless. Hey, have you given up resisting? Situ Feng proudly smiled and punched with his right fist, leaving a majestic green shadow in the air. The majestic aura he exuded was like that of a flood dragon. Die, idiot! The corner of Chu Hen's mouth slightly twitched as he coldly spat out a few words. In the next moment, a very strange fluctuation of power leaked out from his eyes. An obscure, bewitching purple light surged within Chu Hen's eyes, and Situ Feng, who was looking at Chu Hen's eyes, suddenly trembled. Then, the environment in front of him underwent an astonishing change. Endless darkness engulfed the entire space. Chu Hen was clearly in front of him a moment ago, but now, he was more than 10 meters away. In the endless darkness, Chu Hen stood there, and his body exuded a white, dreamy light. Behind Chu Hen, a pair of demonic purple eyes were coldly staring at him. The demonic purple eyes were like the eyes of an ancient demon god, and inside the pupils, 3 black dots appeared in a triangular formation, blooming with a terrifying power. What's going on? Situ Feng was greatly shocked. In just a moment, Situ Feng's consciousness returned to reality. The darkness receded, and the demonic eyes disappeared. He was still on the battle stage. However, it was also in that short instant that Chu Hen's body moved. The black blade in his hand was like a flickering light and passing shadow as it was swung out. Hiss! A crescent silver light fell from the sky, and the sharp sound of the sharp weapon piercing through flesh was clear and harsh. Chu Hen flashed like a phantom and arrived behind Situ Feng. However, Situ Feng was sluggishly standing in the same place. Both of his eyes were wide open, and on his throat, a thin red line was rapidly becoming thicker. Warm blood was gushing out from his wound. Chapter 316. Hiss! The sound of a sharp weapon piercing through flesh was exceptionally sharp and ear-piercing. It was accompanied by a crescent silver light that was more than 10 meters long, descending from the sky. Chu Hen's figure was like a ghost as he passed by Situ Feng's side and arrived behind him. The entire audience was deathly silent, and everyone's heart trembled. Chu Hen held the black blade in his hand, and a drop of bright red blood slid down the blade's edge and gently dripped on the stones on the stage. Situ Feng stood sluggishly in the same place. His eyes were wide open, and his face that was full of fear was filled with endless disbelief. Bang! Situ Feng powerlessly fell to the ground, and the red line on his neck turned from thin to thick, and then blood quickly gushed out. Along with it, Situ Feng's vitality also flowed out. One blade, a fatal one. In an instant, the battle was over. In a split second, the number one genius of Tifeng province, Situ Feng, directly became a dead soul under Chu Hen's blade. Heavens, this! All the students and mentors of Tifeng province, and even the elders and the dean, all had ashen complexions. The crowd that was cheering for Situ Feng just a moment ago was completely silent. The geniuses of the various dynasties felt a chill in their hearts, their backs, and even their scalps were numb, unimaginable. It was really incredible. It was hard to imagine that in such a situation, Chu Hen was still able to kill Situ Feng, and even cut his opponent's throat with a single slash. The scene just now made everyone present very surprised. A second ago, Situ Feng's imposing aura was clearly suppressing Chu Hen, but for some reason, in the blink of an eye, Situ Feng fell to the ground. Everyone felt as if Situ Feng deliberately stood there and let Chu Hen kill him. But who would be so stupid? Buzz, a burst of biting cold wind blew past. Chu Hen's body exuded a domineering aura that suppressed the entire audience, and his cold eyes swept over the geniuses of the major teams below, and a thunderous voice came out from his mouth. Who else dares to fight on the stage? Who else dared to challenge him? An extraordinary domineering aura swept out in all directions. The geniuses of the various teams were like birds startled by the mere twang of a bowstring. Their expressions were grave, and their eyes were filled with fear and reverence. At this moment, most people's gazes landed on Lu Qi of the Misty Wind team. However, there was no hesitation on Lu Qi's face. She shook her head and sighed. I give up. Wah! A wave of exclamations spread out like a tidal wave. In the next moment, a deafening roar erupted from Tensei Prefecture. Chu Hen champion. Chu Hen will win. The Sacred Star Empire is the strongest. Chu Hen champion. The mighty momentum was uniform, and there was not the slightest bit of criticism. Apart from those from Tifeng Province and Imperial Martial Academy, all the spectators from the Sacred Star Empire stood up and applauded. Mu Feng, Li Hui, Zhou Lu, He Qingyun, and a few others even rushed down from the audience seats, all of them extremely excited. Aha! Chu Hen, you're the most handsome. Who else dares to challenge him on the stage? The voice of the host judge, Lu Tong, was filled with unconcealable excitement. He never would have thought that he would witness Chu Hen's domineering victory in the Earth ranking tournament a few months ago. And in today's Heaven ranking tournament, he was still smiling proudly at everyone. Even in his dreams, Lu Tong never would have thought that this would be the result. That miraculous young man was now standing proudly at the peak of the arena, dazzling like the moon and stars in the night sky. No one answered Lu Tong. The geniuses of the various dynasties were all suppressed by Chu Hen's domineering methods. Under the scorching gazes of the crowd, Lu Tong raised his arms and shouted at the top of his lungs, I hereby announce that the champion of the Heaven ranking tournament of the Six Nations is Chu Hen from the Sacred Star team. Boom! Firecrackers were fired, and a rain of petals filled the sky. The entire competition area was filled with unprecedented cheers. Yu Qinyu, Mu Feng, Xiao Yan, Long Qingyang, Li Hui, He Qingyun, and the rest rushed onto the arena one after another, surrounding Chu Hen and cheering heartily. Ha! You're so handsome, so handsome. I hereby announce that from today onwards, you're the most handsome person in the world, and I'm second. Senior brother Mu Feng, this is the best decision you've made this year. Senior brother Chu Hen is definitely the first person in history to be the champion of 2 consecutive rankings. Our Tensei Prefecture is going to rise. Looking at Chu Hen, who was surrounded by the enthusiastic crowd on the stage, Luo Mengchong, who was below the stage, had a faint smile in her eyes. She opened her red lips slightly and murmured softly, Congratulations, Chu Hen. The Heaven ranking tournament quietly came to an end. The geniuses from the various dynasties began to leave the arena one after another. Chiton from the Giant Rock Party looked at Lu Qi from the Misty Wind Party. There was a hint of relief in his tone as he said, "We didn't lose unjustly at all." Lu Qi smiled. "I look forward to our next battle." He, of course. "If there's a next time, I won't fall for your trick again." TSK, I've already reminded you, okay? Are you too stupid, or is it Chu Hen who's smart? Why isn't such an outstanding man from the Misty Wind dynasty? Lu Qi pouted her lips, and her big eyes lit up. Cheating couldn't help but burst into laughter. It seemed like this little devil girl had also met her nemesis. Qi Tong then glanced at the familiar figures from Heaven Luo, Flame Shadow, and Sword Dynasty. The Heaven ranking tournament that had lasted for more than 2 months had finally come to an end. Some people, on the other hand, had lost everything. Negotiations between empires were often filled with bloodshed and sacrifices. However, at least they had done their best, so it was not a wasted trip. In the pavilion on the north side, the development and changes of the matter had caught the few kings who were used to seeing the world by surprise. After many twists and turns, the championship of the Heaven ranking tournament was firmly in the hands of Chu Hen. The emperors of the dynasties all had different feelings. After a series of peak battles, the emperors had gained a better understanding of the strength of the younger generation of the other dynasties. It had to be said that the excitement of the tournament made them feel that it was not a waste of time to come here. The only thing he regretted was that his dynasty did not win the championship. "Mother, our Saint Star dynasty has won 3 consecutive championships," Huang Fu Hao said to the Saint Empress beside him with a pleasantly surprised expression. However, the Saint Empress was not as happy as expected. She responded to Huang Fu Hao softly and said indifferently, "My son, go and greet the emperors. I'll return to the palace first." "Yes, mother." The Saint Empress left under the escort of the 2 peak powerhouses, the Fiendish Star Duo, and the accompaniment of the palace maids and guards. "Farewell, mother." Huang Fu Hao and Huang Fu Qing bowed to send her off. Looking at the cold back of the Saint Empress, Huang Fu Qing's beautiful eyes flashed with a hint of worry. Just now, she had clearly sensed a hint of coldness in the Saint Empress's eyes. It seemed that the Saint Empress was not satisfied with the result of the Heaven List tournament. The Heaven List tournament of the 6 nations had ended. However, in the next few days, the popularity of this topic continued to rise. First, it was the Imperial City, then the entire Sacred Star dynasty, and then the entire 100 Kingdoms province. A storm of commotion was set off. The name of Chu Hen had spread all over the country. Even 3-year-old children knew that there was a young king in the capital, in the streets and alleys, in the taverns and tea houses. Almost any topic could be related to Chu Hen. After the Heaven List tournament, the rankings of the 32 martial schools in the capital will be reshuffled. That's for sure. Tensei Prefecture will be the top academy again, and Imperial Martial will be second. As for Tifeng Province, it will definitely fall behind the other academies. That's ridiculous. Sidu Feng was killed by Chu Hen with 1 strike. You didn't see Dean Defeng's face. It was purple, and he was trembling with anger. It would be strange if he didn't tremble. I heard that in the preliminary round, Ren Han was also killed by Chu Hen. Damn, is that true? Of course it's true. What kind of sin did Tifeng Province commit? The top 2 geniuses were both killed by Chu Hen. He sin? What kind of sin did Tifeng Province commit? Originally, Chu Hen had already been accepted by the Emperor Wen Martial House. In the end, they rejected him without rhyme or reason. It's really God's will. He believed that those academies that rejected Chu Hen at that time were now green with anger, and their intestines were green with regret. This is really a slap in the face. The past was brought up again, and there was a strange feeling. More than a year ago, Chu Hen wandered the streets of the capital without anyone to rely on and was ridiculed by everyone. Now, with practical actions, he had slapped the faces of all the martial schools. It was really unpredictable. Tensei Prefecture, in Chu Hen's room. Phew. Sitting on the bed, Chu Hen let out a long sigh. After a few days of recuperation, the injuries in his body were almost healed. However, the injuries suffered by Chu Hen that day were really serious. In particular, the palm of the Southern Prince, Huang Fu Pingyun, almost broke Chu Hen's meridians. It must be said that if Chu Hen had not killed Situ Feng in such an overbearing manner and shocked the others, then even if an ordinary opponent had appeared, the position of the champion would have been shifted. "Old man, you are the Southern Prince. How dare you do such a ridiculous thing?" Chu Hen cursed in a deep voice, and a trace of coldness flashed in his eyes. In the past few days, Chu Hen had been cultivating wholeheartedly. During this period, Mentor Shilon had come to see him a few times and told him to rest at ease and not to rush to cultivate. Chu Hen, who was used to cultivating in the past, could not sit still. Immediately, Chu Hen calmed down and began to read the contents of the seven-star scripture that had been engraved in his mind. Others only knew that Huang Fuliang had attracted the power of the seven stars to temper his body and obtain the seven-star scripture. Who knew that Chu Hen had also cracked this secret of the royal family? Chapter 317. It was especially quiet in the spacious and bright room. There was a vase on the table with a white magnolia in it. The fresh and elegant fragrance floated in the air, making people feel refreshed. This was the bouquet that Shilon brought when she came to see Chu Hen. During Chu Hen's recuperation, Shilon came several times, each time bringing a new magnolia and taking the old one away, so this one was still as white as before. At this moment, Chu Hen's eyes were closed, and he was sitting on the bed like an old monk in meditation. Wisps of silver starlight lingered around his body, and restless energy was constantly transmitted from Chu Hen's body. The cultivation method that Chu Hen was practicing this time was different from before. The surface of his skin faintly glowed with a sparkling and translucent luster, as if the divine radiance of the stars had sprinkled down. In the blink of an eye, the sky turned from day to night. The sky above the bustling capital was dotted with stars, shining brightly in the night sky. Buzz! Suddenly, a fine silver light fell from the sky and fell into a courtyard in Tensei Prefecture, passing through the roof and merging into the Baihui acupoint on the top of Chu Hen's head. This light came from the arcade of the Big Dipper. However, other than Chu Hen, who could feel the power of the stars, no one else could see this light. Therefore, the people in Tensei Prefecture were not disturbed at all. In the room, when the beam of light that originated from the arcade star connected to Chu Hen's body, Chu Hen could clearly feel a strand of the power of the seven stars fusing into his body. Moreover, it flowed through his meridians and gathered towards his Dantian Qi Si. Although this wisp of energy was relatively small, the strength of the power was quite domineering. Buzz! Chu Hen's divine sense followed that wisp of energy to his Dantian. At this moment, Chu Hen's Dantian Sea of Qi was in a very saturated state. Under the dazzling luster of his Yuan Dan, a huge cyclone of energy gathered around the Yuan Dan. This enormous energy was precisely the energy of the seven stars that Chu Hen had obtained when he was collecting the Dubhe Star Soul Pearl in the Starry Universe spying formation. The power of the seven stars was especially strong and thick. However, if one looked closely, they would discover that a purple net of light had appeared around the Yuan Dan. This light net prevented the seven stars' energy from entering Chu Hen's Yuan Dan. This was done deliberately by Chu Hen. When he was in the star spying array, Chu Hen deliberately let the power of the demon I's sacred body suppress the power of the seven stars that entered his body. Therefore, the huge energy had always been stored in the Dantian's Qi Si. Otherwise, Chu Hen's cultivation would have increased by leaps and bounds. The extremely agitated power of the seven stars was like the magma inside a volcano. However, Chu Hen was still not in a hurry to absorb this power. Chu Hen knew very well what he needed. After all, he had broken through to the sixth stage of the core transformation realm in less than 2 months. Especially in the past year, his cultivation had increased at a speed far faster than ordinary people. If his cultivation level increased too quickly, it would easily cause his foundation to be unstable. He would have to wait for at least another 2 months before he could absorb the power of the seven stars. It was only 2 months later. It did not matter to him. After all, this power was stored in his body and would not disappear. Since he could break through at any time, he was not in a hurry. Buzz, buzz. At the same time, the power of the stars continuously flowed into Chu Hen's body. Traces of the power of the stars entered his Dantian sea of Qi and merged with the power of the 7 stars that was stored there. Chu Hen exclaimed inwardly as he felt the power slowly growing. This 7-star scripture is really amazing. It can actually draw the power of the stars for my own use. Chu Hen spent the whole day studying the contents of the 7-star scripture. The scripture had a total of 7 chapters. They were the Alkaid chapter, Sun opening chapter, Alioth chapter, Migres chapter, Fekta chapter, Merak chapter, and Dubi chapter. The 7 chapters represented 7 different levels of cultivation techniques and martial arts. The cultivation technique Chu Hen was currently cultivating was the first level of the Alkaid chapter. The Alkaid chapter was divided into 3 parts. The first was the Alkaid Star Flash. The so-called Alkaid Star Flash was the powerful killing technique Huang Fuyang used during the Heavenless battle. The Alkaid Star Flash shocked the heavens and earth. This technique gathered the power of the 7 stars outside the body and formed a sudden attack. It was extremely powerful and lethal. It was like a meteor shooting across the sky. The second was the Alkaid movement technique. As the name suggested, this was a movement technique. Once it was used successfully, the Alkaid Chaotic Shadow, 3,000 Lightning Haste, and the Divine Dragon would disappear without a trace. The third was the Alkaid Slash. It was also an extremely destructive technique. The Alkaid Star Flash, the Alkaid Movement Technique, and the Alkaid Slash all require the power of the stars to be used. The more powerful the power of the stars, the more powerful it would be. Ordinary people were unable to absorb the power of the stars to cultivate, but the cultivation technique of the 7-star scripture made all of this possible. Currently, Chu Hen had only started cultivating the first chapter of the Alkaid chapter. The higher the level, the more powerful it would be. At the same time, it would be more difficult to cultivate. However, Chu Hen had to admit that the 7-star scripture was the most powerful cultivation technique he had ever seen. It was not an exaggeration to say that the Sacred Star Dynasty treated it as a top secret. The power of the Alkaid Star Flash was something that Chu Hen had personally experienced. Huang Fuyang had only cultivated it for a month at most, but the Alkaid Star Flash that he used was already so powerful. One could only imagine how powerful it would be in the future. Moreover, this was only the lowest level of the Alkaid chapter. He really did not know how powerful the highest level of the Dubi chapter would be. Thinking about this, Chu Hen could not help but feel that it was a pity that he could not kill Huang Fuyang. No one would want their enemy to have a cultivation technique that was as powerful as their own. Huang Fuyang's talent was very outstanding. Furthermore, he had a high status in the Southern Prince's residence. In terms of cultivation, he had a slight advantage over Chu Hen. By relying on the 7-star scripture, Huang Fuyang would definitely be able to make a comeback. At that time, he would become a formidable opponent of Chu Hen. However, Chu Hen was very clear. The only way to prevent himself from being overtaken was to do better than the other party. I both had the 7-star scripture. Let's see who had a better comprehension ability and who was more diligent. Immediately, Chu Hen did not think too much. He calmed himself down and continued to cultivate the Alkaid chapter. He guided the power of the stars into his body and replenished the stored power in his body. Winning once wasn't a big deal. If he wanted to win, he had to win forever. Chapter 3:18. A night flew by. When the first rays of the morning sun shone through the thick layers of clouds and onto the earth, the ray of silver light from the Alkaid of the 7 stars shot into the sky and disappeared in the room. Chu Hen, who had absorbed the power of the stars for an entire night, emitted an aura that grew stronger and more restless. Rays of resplendent silver light shot out from the surface of Chu Hen's skin. The enormous energy that had been suppressed in his Dantian Sea of Qi was about to break through the boundary and explode. Buzz, buzz! At this moment, a demonic purple light was faintly released from Chu Hen's body. Immediately after, The restless energy was forcibly suppressed back into Chu Hen's body. It gradually reseated and returned to a comfortable state. Phew! Letting out a long breath of turbid air, Chu Hen opened his eyes. A star-like radiance flickered in his eyes. The power of the stars is indeed magical. It's much more domineering than the spiritual energy of heaven and earth. Normally, Wuxiu would absorb the power of the stars by absorbing the spiritual energy of heaven and earth, as well as the energy of the crystals. But now, Chu Hen could absorb the power of the stars by relying on the cultivation method of the seven-star scripture. In comparison, the power of the stars was much stronger than the spiritual energy of heaven and earth. Of course, the density of the spiritual energy of heaven and earth was different from where it was located. For example, sects and clans that had been passed down for hundreds or even thousands of years would often gather a large amount of spiritual energy in their cultivation grounds. The imperial capital was a bustling city, so the spiritual energy of heaven and earth was naturally extremely thin. Although the power of the stars was strong, it could only be comprehended and absorbed at night. As for during the day, it still depended on the spiritual energy of heaven and earth, as well as the crystals. After one night, the energy in his Dantian's Sea of Qi had clearly become much stronger. Chu Hen gathered all the astral energy together. When the time came, he would directly absorb them all and fuse them together. As to what level his cultivation would rise to, Chu Hen's eyes couldn't help but to flash with anticipation. I wonder where the descendant of the imperial family of the Seven Souls ancient kingdom is? Chu Hen muttered to himself as he looked at his left palm. In the center of his palm, there was a vague pattern of 7 stars, and the position of the Dubhe star was the most obvious. Chu Hen's palm condensed, and along with a huge wave of power, a dazzling silver light suddenly bloomed, so strong that it was like a fierce beast that was about to break through its shackles. Chu Hen shook his head slightly, and then withdrew the power. I still can't control the power of the Dubhe Astral Soul Pearl. The 7-star soul pearls of the Seven Souls ancient kingdom were all saint artifacts. With Chu Hen's current cultivation, it was difficult for him to control the power of this Dubhe Star Soul Pearl. After 6 years, the power of the Dubhe Astral Soul Pearl would be sealed. Dubhe Star Spirit Envoy, that old fellow, really gave Chu Hen a difficult problem. The old man was especially clear that 6 years ago, Chu Hen could not control the Star Soul Pearl, and 6 years later, the power of the Star Soul Pearl was sealed again. At that time, Chu Hen would have to look for the descendant of the imperial family of the Seven Souls ancient kingdom to open the seal on the Star Soul Pearl. Old ginger is spicier. This saying was absolutely right. What was in the black box? Chu Hen's mind was filled with curiosity from the tone of the old man. If he gave the black box to the descendant of the imperial family, he seemed to have the confidence to restore the kingdom. However, Chu Hen quickly dispelled the curiosity in his heart. After all, the old man had clearly warned him that the black box could only be opened by the descendant of the imperial family of the Seven Souls ancient kingdom. If anyone else touched it, the consequences would be very miserable. Forget it. Let's not think about this for now. Chu Hen raised both of his arms high up and moved his somewhat stiff body a bit. His bones and joints emitted a light, crackling sound, and a vigorous aura was released. At that moment, Chu Hen had already recovered to his full state. He had not stepped out of his room for a few days, and as soon as he opened the door, fresh and cool air hit his face, making him feel refreshed. When Chu Hen was about to go out, 2 young figures appeared at the entrance of the courtyard. Damn, what the hell is going on? It's all Chu Hen's fault. My 100 flowers towers, little Lianxiang, little Shiyu. The 2 people who were cursing were Mu Feng and Lei Zhan, a pair of brothers in hardship. What's my fault? Chu Hen casually asked. What the F*** CK, you're alive? Can't you say something? Mu Feng was surprised. Senior brother, Chu Hen. Lei Zhan smiled and greeted. Did you 2 just come back from digging coal? Both of them looked a little embarrassed, and their faces were covered in dust as if they had just fought with someone. You're the one who dug coal. Mu Feng unhappily rolled his eyes and said, The entrance of Tensei Prefecture is blocked by people, and the gate has been trampled to pieces. Why? To register as a new student. Chu Hen was startled, and then remembered that the new batch of students was about to start. It should have started long ago, but because of the Heaven List tournament, it was delayed by 3 months. Senior brother Chu Hen, you don't know what the situation outside is like. It's a dense mass of people. The two of us have been squeezing for a long time, but we still can't squeeze out. There are many women who want to give birth to your children. Damn, I don't know what kind of dog shit luck you had in your previous life. Why can't I run into such a good thing? Mu Feng coldly said. Senior brother Chu Hen, you better not go out, especially in the front courtyard. Otherwise, you'll definitely be crushed to death by them. Crushed to death? Chu Hen could not help but find it a bit funny. After staying with Mu Feng for a long time, Lei Zhan had indeed been assimilated. The simple and honest youth from Holy Bell City in the past would not be able to say such words. Got it. I'll go to the Maple Forest Pillar. Unknowingly, it was time for the annual admission test in the imperial capital. The major martial houses started to get busy again. Huangwu, Imperial Wind, Lingxi, Bright Moon, and Mammoth. The 5 martial houses were still popular, but this year, Tensei Prefecture was the fiercest. Once the news of the admission test was released, for a few days, the entrance of Tensei Prefecture was filled with people. Young geniuses from various cities in the Sacred Star dynasty rushed to the front courtyard of the school. Who would have thought that last year, the entrance of Tensei Prefecture was still empty? Even when people mentioned the words Tensei Prefecture, they would involuntarily reveal a look of disdain. However, now, Tensei Prefecture had already become the most authoritative school in the imperial capital. Not only did it regain its position as the top of the 6 schools, it was even livelier than during its peak. Everyone in the academy had already started to get busy. Even Principal Jiang wasn't idle. Many influential clans in the imperial capital paid a visit one after another. They wanted to send their juniors to the Heavenly Star Martial House and discuss various matters with Principal Jiang. Tensei Prefecture had risen overnight. However, all of this was due to one person, the new young king of the imperial capital, Chu Hen. After a few days, imperial capital, Golden Throne Hall. Royal sister, what do you think we should reward this Chu Hen? Quick, help me think of an idea. The Heaven List tournament had been going on for some time. It was almost time to reward the geniuses who participated in the Heaven List tournament. As for what to reward Chu Hen, His Majesty Huang Fu Hao was a bit worried. What do you want to reward him? Huang Fu Qing asked with a smile. Give him a land, a city, and the title of Marquis? Huang Fu Hao said. Huang Fu Qing shook her head. What about the title of king? But the title of king must be given to someone who has made great contributions to the dynasty. Most of them are the founding officials. Isn't that a bit inappropriate? Huang Fu Hao was a bit troubled. Huang Fu Qing smiled. I know Chu Hen. He has been idle for a long time and only wants to cultivate and pursue the peak of martial arts. If you ask him to be an official now, he will probably refuse. He doesn't want to be an official? Then I will give him 10 million gold, a mansion, 200 maids, and 1 million upper-grade crystals. What do you think? I already said that Chu Hen only wants to pursue martial arts. If you give him gold and beauties, will he still have the mood to cultivate? This is not good, that is not good. Then tell me, what does he want? Wait. Huang Fu Hao suddenly changed the topic and looked at Huang Fu Qing with a strange look. Huang Fu Qing felt uncomfortable under his gaze. What's wrong? Sister, how do you know Chu Hen so well? Do you know each other? Tell me honestly, sister, do you have a special relationship with that Chu Hen? What are you talking about? Huang Fu Qing turned around, and a ripple appeared in her beautiful eyes. Sister, there are no outsiders here. Just tell me the truth. To be honest, sister, you are of marriageable age. How about I give you to Chu Hen? You're courting death. Huang Fu Qing turned around and flicked Huang Fu Hao's forehead. Huang Fu Hao hurriedly covered his forehead in pain. Ouch, it hurts. Sister, I was just joking. You're too cruel. I am the emperor. Can't you give me some face? You deserve it. How dare you make fun of your sister? Huang Fu Qing snorted. One of them was the emperor, and the other was the princess. But in private, they were the closest siblings. When there were no outsiders, Huang Fuqing was the boss. Sister, since you are so close to Chu Hen, how about you take care of the reward for him? All right. Huang Fuqing nodded. I understand. Leave it to me. Also, sister, I actually admire Chu Hen a lot. How about you introduce me to him in private? Huang Fuhao smiled. He didn't look like he was joking at all. To be honest, Huang Fuhao was only a youth about the same age as Chu Hen. If not for the fact that he had no other choice, Huang Fuhao would rather be free and pursue the path of martial arts. After witnessing Chu Hen's perfect performance in the Heavenless tournament, Huang Fuhao admired Chu Hen's youthful spirit. Huang Fuqing smiled. All right, we'll talk about it when we have time. Yes, but don't let Mother know about this. I feel that she doesn't like Chu Hen very much. Chapter 319. Divine Queen, why did you summon me so late at night? In a luxurious bedroom, a red carpet was laid on the floor. The bead curtain was half hanging down. An old man in black and a white robe stood on both sides of the bead curtain. The former had eyes as sharp as an eagle, while the latter had eyes as cold as a tiger. These two were called Ghost Eagle and Blood Tiger. However, the outside world called them Old Eagle and Old Tiger. The Evil Star duo were two extremely famous experts from more than 10 years ago. They once made people tremble in fear at the mention of their names. Now, the two of them were guarding the elegant middle-aged woman behind the bead curtain like door gods. The Divine Queen sat on a wide chair. Her indifferent gaze passed through the bead curtain and landed on a man wearing a silver mask who was kneeling before her. Stand up and speak, the Divine Queen said indifferently. Thank you, Divine Queen. The man stood up respectfully. The sharp eyes behind the mask were now filled with respect. The Imperial Dark Elite Team was known as the strongest fighting force in the Sacred Star Dynasty. However, in the past, the Imperial Dark Elite Team was an elite team set up to protect the Emperor. Today, the Imperial Dark Elite Team listened to the orders of Huang Fuhao, but the Divine Queen in front of them. That time, I asked Her Highness to lead you to pursue the traitor thief rat who stole the Sacred Star Heavenly Book. Did you miss anything? Almost a year had passed, but it was brought up again. This somewhat surprised the man wearing the silver mask. Even though he was puzzled, he still respectfully replied. Replying to the Divine Empress's words, I did not miss anything. The only thing we missed was that we didn't manage to kill the thief Rat Godly. That thief Rat Godly thief is also quite strong. It's normal that you couldn't keep him here. A low and hoarse voice came out from the mouth of the black-clothed old eagle. Behind the curtain, the Divine Empress's expression did not change in the slightest. The thief Rat has escaped. Ijia does not blame you. But there was another fish that escaped the net. You let him go. Another fish that slipped through the net? The heart of the silver-masked man suddenly jolted, and he hurriedly knelt on the ground. Your Divine Majesty, at the time, it was Her Highness the Princess who was extremely determined. She firmly believed that Chu Hen had not opened the Sacred Star Heavenly Tome. This subordinate could not defy Her Highness the Princess's orders. I already know about this matter. There is no need for you to repeat it. Yes, Your Divine Majesty. The silver-masked man was somewhat uneasy. I have a mission for you. Monitor Chu Hen's every move and report back to me at any time. Understood. Let's go. Yes. After the silver-masked man left, the white-clothed old tiger demon said in a deep voice, Is the Divine Empress worried that Chu Hen might have secretly read the Sacred Star Heavenly Book? What do you think? The Divine Empress asked. The fiend duo glanced at each other before Old Tiger Demon continued. In the past year, Chu Hen's strength has indeed increased rapidly. However, it is said that he had already reached the 4th level of the core transformation realm before the Heaven Ranking Tournament. After returning from the Seven Souls Ancient Kingdom, he only increased by 2 levels. Of course, that kid's battle prowess is extraordinary. I do not dare to say whether or not he has seen through the secret of the Sacred Star Heavenly Book. That being said, the fiend duo knew the Divine Empress personality. She would rather kill the wrong person than let him go. If Chu Hen had really become so strong because of the Sacred Star Heavenly Book, then there was only one result. Evening. The gate of the academy in Tensei Prefecture, which had been blocked for an entire day, finally loosened up. However, for the past few days, all the instructors of the Martial House were extremely tired. They were busy with all kinds of recruitment matters, registration, and examinations. They were completely overwhelmed. However, being able to see the prosperity of the academy, everyone felt both pain and happiness. Senior Brother Chu Hen, you're so strong now. Are you considering leaving the academy? After completing their cultivation at the Maple Forest Dance, Chu Hen, Li Hui, Zhou Lu, Mu Feng, and Lei Zhun chatted as they walked. Chu Hen's strength was at the top of the pyramid among the younger generation. If he continued to stay in the academy, he would not be able to make any huge breakthroughs. After all, the three strongest instructors in Tensei Prefecture, Shilan, Song Qinglai, and Shadowless, were only at the 9th level of the core transformation realm. Unless Principal Jiang personally taught Chu Hen, not many people could teach him. Chu Hen smiled. It's not that soon. Instructor Shilan can still help me make up for more flaws. At the very least, I should wait until next year before considering leaving the academy. After all, there had never been a case of an instructor leaving the academy after a year. What's more, Chu Hen had recently focused his attention on cultivating the 7-star scripture. Moreover, instructor Shilan had a lot of knowledge. If he continued to stay in the academy, there was still a lot of room for improvement. Hee, that's good. Otherwise, if you leave, I won't even have someone to brag to. Mu Feng smiled slyly. I wonder how Haozi is doing now. When Mu Feng said this casually, Chu Hen could not help but think of Haozi with small eyes. It had been a year since he left with the thief, Rat Godly. If they met again, he would most likely be shocked. There's a beauty in front. Li Hui suddenly said. She looks like Her Royal Highness, Huang Fuqing. Mu Feng added. What look? That's obviously Huang Fuqing. Okay. Holy shit, what? Huang Fuqing. Li Hui was tongue-tied. Mu Feng, Zhou Lu, and the others next to him widened their eyes. Less than 10 meters in front of them, Huang Fuqing was wearing light clothes. Her long hair was tied up in a bun, with a few strands hanging on both sides of her cheeks. She was noble yet elegant, and beautiful. Do you have time? Huang Fuqing's lips curled into a faint smile. Chu Hen smiled and nodded. I just finished cultivating. Let's go for a walk. Chu Hen hesitated for a moment, but still agreed. Okay. Watching Chu Hen and Huang Fuqing leave together, a wave of ghostly wails and wolf howls came from behind. F*CK, your uncle's biscuit, you beast. You know all 4 beauties of the imperial capital. I remember someone saying that if Chu Hen still knows Huang Fuqing, someone will eat a pile of dog shit. Zhou Lu's eyes were full of evil light. I also remember. Li Hui's face was full of evil smiles. Chapter 320. In the evening, the bustling imperial city started its sleepless mode. The gentle night breeze blew past. There were many people taking a stroll by the lake in the center of the city. Chu Hen and Xiaqing walked side by side, leisurely and leisurely. The atmosphere seemed to be a little subtle. Today, Xiaqing's attire was less graceful and noble, but it was more elegant and elegant. The strands of black hair on both sides of her cheeks were slightly messy, and her white skin was as smooth as jade. In the dim light of the night, it added a bit of hazy beauty to it. Why do you keep looking at me? Xiaqing's beautiful eyes rippled, and her red lips opened slightly. Ahem. Chu Hen lightly coughed, smiled, and said, I feel that you are a little different today. What's different? I don't know. Idiot. Why are you looking for me? Can't I look for you for no reason? Xiaqing asked. No, I'm just asking. This is for you. Xiaqing suddenly took out an imperial edict and handed it to Chu Hen. This is the imperial edict issued by His Majesty. He is going to confer you the title of Marquis of 10,000 households and cede you a land. Which land do you want? Looking at the imperial edict in her hand, Chu Hen had no intention of taking it. What's wrong? Xia Qing asked. Chu Hen shook his head without thinking. Thank His Majesty for his kindness. Just say that Chu Hen is wholeheartedly pursuing the path of martial arts and has no intention of becoming an official. I hope His Majesty will take back his order. You really don't want to? Do you think your position is too small? Then I'll go back and discuss with His Majesty and see if I can make you a marquis. Chu Hen found it a little funny and then joked. Then why don't you discuss with His Majesty and see if the palace needs a son-in-law? I'll see if I'm lucky enough to marry a princess. In your dreams. Xia Qing glared at him. You're not serious at all. Then Xia Qing put away the imperial edict and took out another item. I knew you would refuse, so I brought you anything, oh? Chu Hen raised his eyebrows, only to see Xia Qing take out a square token the size of half a palm. The token was pure gold in color, and there were exquisite patterns engraved in the center. In the center of the pattern, there was a dignified and imposing emperor character that was exceptionally eye-catching. What is this? The imperial family's earthly token. With this token, you can enter and exit the imperial city at any time without obstruction. Chu Hen smiled and said, Why would I want to go in and out of the palace? I'm not done yet. Xia Qing patted him lightly and continued. With this Earth and Earth medallion, the Chamber of Commerce and the Inscription Master Association in the Imperial City and even the entire Saint Star dynasty will treat you as an honored guest. You can unconditionally enjoy the elixirs, weapons, and primordial crystals of the various associations. Chu Hen's eyes lit up. Pills, weapons, and primordial crystals can be used freely. That's right. Xia Qing nodded and affirmed, no matter what you take from those associations, the royal family will pay for it. Of course, the maximum value of the things you consume every year is 1 million high-grade primordial crystals. The expiration date is the same as your lifespan. 1 million high-grade primordial crystals? When these words were spoken, even Chu Hen was shocked. As expected of the royal family, this was really shocking. Every year, he could use resources worth 1 million high-grade primordial crystals. In 10 years, it would be 10 million, and in 20 years, it would be 20 million. In other words, Chu Hen would not have to worry about not having enough primordial crystals to use in his lifetime. Especially weapons, elixirs, and many other resources, he could even have priority to use them. This was obviously more valuable than any fixed reward. Just thinking about it made him excited. How is it? What do you think of this reward? Xia Qing raised her eyebrows, and a trace of pride flashed in her eyes. It's not too bad. As soon as she finished speaking, Chu Hen directly took the earthly token from her hand. Then, with an expression of I don't know anything, he walked forward as if nothing had happened. Xia Qing was stunned at first, but she was angry and amused at the same time. If you're not satisfied, we can discuss other things. There's no need to discuss. Chu Hen waved his hand behind him and said, I'll make do with it. Unless the royal family still lacks a prince consort, I can reluctantly consider it. In your dreams. I'm the only princess in the royal family. What do you mean by that? Xia Qing chased after him and said, Then there's no need to consider. If you dare to talk nonsense again, believe it or not, I'll kick you into the river. Don't, if others see it, your image as a princess will be ruined. Don't worry. Even if it's ruined, I won't blame you. Does the emperor's sister need to worry about getting married? The two of them played along the riverside and chatted until it was almost midnight before they separated. Chu Hen naturally returned to Tensei Prefecture, and Xia Qing returned to the royal palace. A few days passed in a row. The recruitment of students in Tensei Prefecture was still in progress. In less than 10 days, the number of new students admitted by the academy had surpassed the number of students at its peak. For this reason, the academy had no choice but to gradually increase the difficulty of the assessment to select new students with outstanding qualifications. But even so, Tensei Prefecture was still bustling with activity. In the evening, after Chu Hen's training ended, he changed his clothes and went out. About an hour later, Chu Hen arrived at the entrance of a particularly grand and imposing building. Above the wide entrance, there was a plaque with a few eye-catching words written on it. Herbalist Guild. As the name suggested, This guild was the largest gathering place for herbalists in the imperial city. There were very few herbalists in the Sacred Star dynasty, but more than 90% of the herbalists in the imperial city were members of this guild. It was also Chu Hen's first time here. Hello, young Master Chu Hen. Welcome to the Herbalist Guild. May I know how I can help you? As soon as he stepped through the entrance of the guild, a sweet female voice greeted him. It was a beautiful young woman. From her eyes, one could see some surprise and excitement. One must know that even a 3-year-old child in the imperial city knew Chu Hen. The recent rise in fame and the sudden visit of the hot double-role champion naturally caused a receptionist to be excited. Chu Hen smiled and said politely, I want to find a high-ranking herbalist who specializes in smithing. The Herbalist Guild was divided into 3 major areas. One was alchemy, another was smithing, and the last one was spiritual array. The first patriarch of St. Bell City, Lei Huan, had some achievements in these 3 areas, but Chu Hen had spent most of his time researching spiritual array. As for the other 2 areas, he was relatively weak. The reason why Chu Hen came here today was related to smithing. All right, young Master Chu Hen, please wait for a moment. I will go and inform them for you. You can take a look around the lobby. Thank you. Young Master is too polite. It is my honor to be able to serve you. The young lady looked at Chu Hen shyly before turning around and heading to the backstage. Chu Hen scanned his surroundings. Only now did he realize that the Engraver Guild was not just big. The grayish-white marble floor was as sturdy as iron, and there were all sorts of beautiful lights hanging from the ceiling that was tens of meters high. There were a few people walking in front of the counters. Although this place was not as lively as the market, and could even be said to be a little deserted, everyone was dressed brightly. With one look, one could tell that they were wealthy people from well-off families. Soon, the young woman came over with 2 people. The moment they saw Chu Hen, the 2 of them excitedly walked in front of the young lady. What a distinguished guest. The one who spoke was a middle-aged man. He looked at Chu Hen with a face full of smiles. I didn't know that young Master Chu Hen had arrived. My name is Yuda, one of the members of the guild. Mr. Yuda, Chu Hen nodded politely. My name is Wenhong. Nice to meet you. A red-clothed girl beside Yuda extended her right hand first and greeted Chu Hen. Chu Hen faintly smiled and shook hands with him. Wenhong, young Master Chu Hen, is here to find a herbalist who specializes in smithing. Why are you here? Yuda said with dissatisfaction. Why, can't I come? Little brother Chu Hen and I are both tattoo masters in the field of spirit arrays. Can't we communicate with each other? Wenhong replied without any trace of politeness and called Chu Hen little brother, as if they were very familiar with each other. These 2 had witnessed the battle between Chu Hen and Huang Fu Liang during the Heavenless tournament. Both of them had also commented on Chu Hen's rune technique in the audience seats. Just now, when they heard that Chu Hen had arrived, the 2 of them ran out to receive him without saying a word. If it was someone else, they wouldn't even bother with him. Herbalists were all proud, especially advanced herbalists. Before coming to the guild, Chu Hen had already learned about the situation here. Yuda and Wenhong were both rather well-known figures and were highly respected in the imperial city. Yuda was an advanced 8th-stage herbalist. Wenhong was slightly weaker, as she was an advanced 7th-stage herbalist. Of course, this was because they specialized in different fields. It was just a difference of 1 stage, so it was hard to say who was stronger. However, in terms of status, Yuda still had the right to speak. Look at you. Is brother Chu Hen very familiar with you? Yuda also changed the way he addressed him. Yuda, can you be more shameless? Don't imitate me in everything. Who's imitating you? All right. Let's stop arguing. Don't let brother Chu Hen see us as a joke. Chu Hen was indeed standing at the side, watching the joke. He didn't expect these 2 advanced herbalists to be so enthusiastic. Now that the 2 of them were acting like this, he felt a little embarrassed. All right, brother Chu Hen, did you say that you want to find a herbalist who specializes in smithing? Yuda returned to the topic. Chapter 3:21. I have a weapon that I'd like to repair. Chu Hen explained the purpose of his visit. Oh, repair a weapon? Yuda and Wenhong looked at each other. Yuda lowered his head and asked, Is it a spiritual weapon? Yes. Chu Hen nodded and confirmed. This weapon of mine is only left with a weapon spirit. I wonder if brother Yu has any way to help? Since Yuda called him brother, Chu Hen followed suit and called him brother. This was considered reciprocity. Moreover, Yuda was an advanced level 8 tattooist. It was not demeaning for Chu Hen to call him brother. Only the weapon spirit is left. That means I need to reconstruct the body of the weapon. That's not easy. Yuda frowned as he pondered. Oomph. On the side, when Hong disdainfully coldly snorted, "Old brother Chu Hen, don't count on this guy. Come, Sister Hong, I'll bring you to find other rune masters. In our guild, there are many rune masters that are more powerful than Big Yu." What are you talking about? Yuda quickly retorted, "I only said it's difficult. I didn't say I can't help. I don't dare to say anything else, but in terms of crafting, how many people in this guild can beat me?" He's bragging again. Women are always troublesome. "Brother Chu Hen, come with me." Yuda pulled Chu Hen's wrist and walked towards the inner hall. The Tattooist Guild was divided into the front hall and the inner hall. Only members of the guild and some distinguished guests could enter the inner hall. Under Yuda and Wan Hong's lead, Chu Hen arrived at the inner hall. Compared to the front hall, the inner hall was much more spacious. A few men and women in luxurious clothes were gathered together in twos and threes, discussing something. Chu Hen glanced around and saw that most of them were tattooists. To be able to see so many pattern masters at once, this more or less made Chu Hen a little surprised. However, most of them were elementary and intermediate rune masters. There weren't many advanced rune masters, and those like Yuda and Wen Hong were even rarer. But when they saw Chu Hen appear, many people around them cast surprised gazes at him. Yuda brought Chu Hen in front of a counter. On the other side of the counter stood an old man in his 50s. He was slightly plump, had a round face and big eyes, and gave off an inexplicable sense of joy. Wasn't he the champion of the heaven list? What a distinguished guest. The old man immediately saw Chu Hen behind Yuda. "Brother Chu Hen, this is Uncle Lu. He has the most complete set of refining materials here." Yuda enthusiastically introduced. "Uncle Lu." Chu Hen smiled politely. "Hee, I have watched your matches. Within the next few years, you will definitely surpass Wen Hong. Are you interested in joining the Inscriber Guild? I'll be your referral." "Go." Before the other could finish, Yuda interrupted him and said, "Old man Lu, don't do that. Brother Chu Hen has important matters to attend to today." Yuda, you want to be Brother Chu Hen's referral, right? Chu Hen knew about the matter of referrals. In order to continuously strengthen their forces, the Inscriber Guild would always invite rune masters outside of the guild to join. Once a rune master was invited to join, then the referral would receive a corresponding reward from the guild. But Yuda coldly snorted, "Old man Lu, you think too much. Don't force your thoughts on me. Are you going to do business or not? If not, I'll go find Li Gui. Don't fall out so easily. Say it. What do you want?" "Brother Chu Hen, what's your damage totem?" "Zhong." Chu Hen answered without hesitation. "Zhong?" The few of them were stunned. Chu Hen was referring to the spirit of the illusory spirit bell that he obtained from St. Bell City. When he returned from the Heaven Lake mountain range, he actually had the idea of repairing the illusory spirit bell. But due to the arrival of the all-school martial arts competition and the Six Nations competition, he didn't have the time. Moreover, the cost of repairing it was too high, so he didn't carry it out. But now, with the Earth and Earth token that Xiaqing gave him, he didn't have to worry about the cost. It was worth 1,000,000 high-grade primordial crystal stones every year, so it would be a waste not to use it. "What bell do you want? Can you describe it in simple terms?" "Let me show you," Chu Hen said. After saying that, Chu Hen moved his mind and a vigorous Reiki energy spread out from his Naiwan palace. Then he opened his right palm and an illusory golden light shadow appeared in front of the few of them. It was the shadow of a golden bell. It was narrow at the top and wide at the bottom. The bell's surface was flowing with silver light and was covered with mysterious runes. Yuda, Wen Hong, and Uncle Lu's eyes lit up and their faces were filled with astonishment. What a shocking energy wave. I didn't expect it to still have such a strong aura after its body was destroyed. This item is definitely not ordinary. Uncle Lu said, "No wonder Brother Chu Hen wants to repair this spiritual weapon. It would be a pity to throw it away just like that," Wen Hong said. Chu Hen took back the illusory spirit bell and asked, "Does Big Brother Yu and Uncle Lu have any ideas?" Yuta nodded slightly and answered without hesitation. "If we want to make a custom-made body, it will take at least a year." "A year? That's too long. Then we can only use the finished product directly." Yuta looked back at Uncle Lu and said, "Is there a body that fits this spirit?" "There is, but the price. Don't worry about the price." Chu Hen said, "All right, then wait for me here. I'll go get the body. But you have to be mentally prepared. Weapons that look like a bell are very rare to begin with. It can be said that there are almost none. That body has been in the warehouse for more than 10 years. I can't guarantee that the talisman will not meet your requirements." Uncle Lu said. Chu Hen nodded. If it didn't work, then he could only customize the body. It wasn't that there was no other choice. It would just take a little longer. Uncle Lu left first. Then, Yuta took out a round greenstone. The greenstone surface was very smooth, like a bright mirror. "Brother Chu Hen, I need to test the power contained in your spirit so that I can prepare the other materials. What do I need to do?" Chu Hen asked. "It's very simple. You only need to mobilize a trace of the spirit's power and inject it into this green mirror stone. The green mirror stone will produce a Tao pattern according to the strength of the spirit. The deeper the Tao pattern, the stronger the spirit's power. Understand?" Yuta nodded and pushed the green mirror stone in front of him. Immediately, Chu Hen mobilized a trace of the illusory spirit clock's spirit's power and released it outside his body. A pale golden light beam swept out from his fingers and swept toward the green mirror stone. As soon as it came into contact with the golden light beam, the green mirror stone immediately produced a strong energy wave. In the next second, a dark pattern appeared on the surface of the green mirror stone at a speed visible to the naked eye. "The color is so dark." Wen Hong raised her thin eyebrows and exclaimed softly in surprise. Crack! Suddenly, a clear and melodious sound was transmitted to their ears without any warning. Under Yuta and Wen Hong's astonished gaze, the green mirror stone's surface actually cracked into a fine pattern. This, Yuta and Wen Hong looked at each other and saw the shock in each other's eyes. Seeing this, Chu Hen couldn't help but ask, "Brother Yu, Sister Hong, what's wrong?" Yuta let out a deep breath and squinted his eyes with a trace of complexity and solemnity. "Brother Chu Hen, it seems that we still underestimated the power of your treasure." "Oh, a spiritual weapon that can crack the green mirror stone is ranked very high on the spiritual weapon list, at least in the top 50. Wen Hong explained. Even in the entire Saint Star dynasty, there were only a few treasures in the top 50 of the spiritual weapon list. However, Chu Hen had one here. This really caused the two of them to be extremely shocked. Yuta immediately felt the pressure. He was relatively experienced in repairing spiritual artifacts, but he had never repaired a spiritual artifact of this level. Once it was messed up, it was not a big deal to damage his reputation, but he was afraid that he would accidentally destroy such a precious treasure. Of course, Chu Hen knew what it meant to be in the top 50 of the spiritual weapon list, and this was just a conservative estimate. Of course, on second thought, Patriarch Lei Huan was a spiritual tattooist, so the illusory spirit clock he owned could not be an ordinary one. "Brother Yu, don't worry. I won't blame you even if you accidentally destroy the spirit." Chu Hen was also clear that no matter if it was alchemy, weapon crafting, or array setting, they all had a certain amount of risk. Things like materials being destroyed were extremely common. It wasn't strange for pattern makers to lose their lives because of the backlash from the rune's power. "I won't destroy it, but I'm afraid that the power of your treasure can't be fully restored. At most, it can only be restored to 70% of its original power, and that's under the condition that the body matches. 70% is enough," Chu Hen said. The illusory spirit clock with 70% of its power could be in the top 100 of the spiritual weapon list. Even if it couldn't, it was at least better than not being able to use it now. "Okay, as long as you know it in your heart." After saying that, Yuta took out a pen and paper and smoothly made a list with a series of materials, all of which were rare and precious metals. Just at this moment, there was a sudden commotion in the hall. Unconcealable reverence and envy surged in the eyes of many pattern masters. Chu-Hen curiously turned his gaze over, only to see a tall and beautiful figure surrounded by a few young men and women arriving here. It's Miss Zhang. When did she come back? Chapter 322. It's Miss Zhang. When did she return? The sudden appearance of the beautiful figure immediately attracted the attention of everyone present. These proud and arrogant tattoo masters seemed to be ashamed of themselves in front of her. Chu-Hen raised his gaze and saw that it was a young girl around 17 or 18 years old. He was dressed in a white fox fur coat. Regardless of his temperament or appearance, he was one of the best. She was a high-ranked tattoo master. Moreover, she was a 6th grade high-ranked tattoo master. Chu-Hen was able to make a judgment from the other party's unrestrained fluctuations of spiritual power with just a glance. To have such a level of attainment as a pattern master at this age, it was no wonder that those people would revere her so much. Even Chu-Hen was surprised. He then asked casually, "Who is she?" One of the 6 pearls, Zhang Yi, the #1 genius tattoo master in the Sacred Star Empire. Wen Hong said softly, "Oh." Chu-Hen's eyelids twitched. He was even more surprised. Then why didn't she participate in the Heavenless tournament? Wen Hong shook her head with a smile. "Brother Chu-Hen, you might not be aware of this, but Miss Zhang has already entered the Otherworldly Spirit sect 2 years ago. She only returns to the sect once in a while, and she doesn't belong to any high-ranked martial house. Cultivating in a sect?" When those words were said, even Chu-Hen couldn't help but slightly narrow the corner of his eyes. It was no wonder that every single person in the crowd had an envious expression. The Eastern continent was vast and boundless, with countless forces and tens of thousands of clans. However, the world respected martial arts, and martial arts flourished. If one could enter a sect and pursue the supreme martial path, it was the long-cherished wish of countless young geniuses. If one said that a youth academy was an initiation education, a high-ranked martial house was the door to the martial path. However, a sect was a path of cultivation that was above a high-ranked martial house. The heritage of a sect was far beyond that of a martial house. The martial heritage of the former was more powerful, more orthodox, and had a longer history. In fact, many geniuses of the 100 Kingdoms Empire would choose to enter a sect after graduating from a high-ranked martial house. However, the conditions to enter the sect were very harsh and strict. Only those with extremely high talent and aptitude could be chosen by the sect. The 6 great dynasties and empires were nothing in front of those powerful sections. However, this young girl named Zhang had entered the sect at the age of 16. It was truly shocking. However, what left Chu-Hen even more surprised was that the other party had actually joined the Otherworldly Spirit sect. Back then, one of the 5 powers that had invaded the 7 Souls ancient kingdom and stolen the 7-star soul orb was the Otherworldly Spirit sect. In the vast eastern continent, the Otherworldly demonic sect could be considered as one of the strongest powers in the world. "I'm afraid this woman's background isn't simple," Chu-Hen said casually. He is indeed not simple. Other than being a disciple of the Otherworldly Spirit sect, she's also the niece of that person. Yuta, who had already finished his list, put down the paper and brush in his hand and said, "That person?" Chu-Hen was taken aback at first. Then he looked at the other party in surprise. Yuta chuckled and nodded in affirmation. Chu-Hen was astonished, as expected of someone with a powerful background. That person that Yuta spoke of was none other than the only spirit rune master in the capital, Zhen Danxian. This was definitely an incredible figure. Zhen Danxuan's standing in the capital was even higher than that of the royal family. Even the upper echelons of the royal family had to show some respect to Zhen Danxian. Just this point alone was sufficient to show how high Zhen Danxuan's standing was. The reason why Ms. Zhen was able to enter the Otherworldly Spirit sect is also due to Zhen Danxian. He has some ties with an elder of the otherworldly spirit sect. Of course, Ms. Zhenyi's talent is also extremely frightening. She condensed her Dao seed at the age of 10, reached the level of a middle-rank rune master at the age of 13, and now, at the age of 17, she has already reached the level of a high-rank 6th-grade rune master. Yuda explained with great interest. Even Zhen Danxian has said that within 6 years, there will be a second spirit rune master in the capital, and that will be his niece, Zhen Yi. 5 years later, Zhen Yi would only be 23 years old. At that time, it would definitely stir up a storm in the Saint Star Empire. Chu Hen smiled and didn't say anything else. Other people's business was other people's business. He just had to take care of himself. Not too long later, Uncle Lu returned. He even brought back a huge bell. This old man is exhausted. This is an antique that has been here for more than a decade. It took me half a day to drag it out for you. Take a look and see if it fits. Following Uncle Lu's guidance, Chu Hen, Yuda, and Wen Hong's gazes fell on the huge bell. This was a golden bell that was about 2 meters tall. It had a dark golden luster, as if it was made of molten copper. There were a few complicated ancient characters and some horizontal stripes engraved on the surface of the bell. It gave off a feeling of indestructibility and impregnability. Chu Hen reached out his hand to touch the surface of the bell. He thought it would be cold, but the feeling from his fingertips was warm. This is a huge bell made of metal minerals extracted from 1,000-year-old volcanic rocks. You can rest assured about its sturdiness. As for whether it can fit with your spirit, I can't guarantee, Uncle Lu said. Chu Hen nodded slightly and turned his eyes to Yuda. Okay. Yuda also agreed in a low voice. At least it was a little better than he had imagined. Give me a price. Uncle Lu grinned and stretched out 3 fingers. 300,000 upper-grade primordial crystals. 300,000? Even though Chu Hen was mentally prepared, he was still shocked. Wasn't this robbing money? Get lost. Yuda directly scolded and glared at Uncle Lu. Old Lu, don't ask for an exorbitant price. I'm a refiner. You won't get any advantage from me. Hee, I'm joking. I'm just playing with you. Looking at old Lu's sneaky smile, Chu Hen also heaved a sigh of relief. He almost had a heart attack just now. Although he had a limit of 1 million upper-grade primordial crystals, it was really painful to take out 300,000 in one go. After all, he had never spent so many primordial crystals before. A fixed price, 200,000 upper-grade primordial crystals. Old Lu's second offer was directly reduced by 100,000. Seeing that Yuda was about to explode again, Old Lu quickly said, "Don't be angry first. The materials used to make this big bell are all upper-grade. Among them, there are glazed crystals, purple origin stones, black iron essence. These extremely precious materials, plus the later production, are definitely worth this price." What else? Yuda looked at him coldly. Also, the sturdiness of this bell is not any weaker than a spirit weapon. If you don't believe me, you could take out a spirit weapon and try. If you can easily destroy this bell, this old man will give you 200,000. After listening to old Lu's explanation, Chu Hen could not help but feel a little tempted. However, Yuda was even more disdainful. Old man, also, this thing of yours has been in the warehouse for more than 10 years, and nobody wants it. Even if it's there for another 8 to 10 years, nobody will buy it. If you have the ability, bring it into your coffin. After you die, I'll dig your grave. Isn't that better? Yuda's words almost made Chu Hen and Wen Hongxiao burst out laughing. The corner of old Lu's eyes could not help but twitch. He suppressed his anger and said, "How much did you say?" 100,000 upper-grade primordial crystals, not a single more. If you don't want to sell it, I can go find someone else. Are you the only one who runs a weapon shop in the imperial capital? 200,000? Why don't you say 2 million? You? Old Lu's eyes widened. Cutting the price by half in one go, Yuda really killed without spilling blood. 180,000. Old Lu replied fiercely. 180,000, no more. 150,000 should be fine. 150,000. 110,000. 110,000 is fine. This old man has to collect some storage fees. After leaving it here for so long, you still have the nerve to ask me to pay so much money? All right then, 110,000 it is. Yuta said without any pressure. Old Lu almost fainted from anger. He had fallen for this bastard trick. Seeing that old Lu was about to flip out, when Hong hurriedly persuaded, Uncle Lu, this deal can be done. Look, after waiting for more than 10 years, it's not easy to meet someone who needs a clock. Accompanying him less is a profit, don't you think? Chu Hen stood at the side and did not say anything. He let them speak. Very soon, old Lu compromised. His gloomy face eased up a little. Did I owe you in my previous life? Hee. Thank you, old Lu. Oh no, Uncle Lu, Yuta said as he handed over the list he had just made. Also, prepare 3 sets of each of these materials. Then put on my account. I'll settle it with you later. Chu Hen was stunned at first. He hurriedly said, Old brother you, how can I do that? I'll settle it myself. Hee, it's fine. Yuta laughed heartily. Since you've already called me old brother, then there's no need to be polite between us. No, how can I let old brother you spend so much money? I'll settle it myself. More than 100,000 high-grade primordial crystals was not a small amount. Chu Hen knew the principle of not accepting a reward without doing anything. Once you owe a favor, it would be difficult to return it in the future. Moreover, the two of them had only met for the first time. There was no reason for Chu Hen to let Yuta bear such a sum of money. However, Yuta's goal was very clear. He wanted a rope in Chu Hen. Currently, Chu Hen's reputation was like the sun in the sky. His future potential was even more limitless. It was not a bad idea to have a good relationship with him. Of course, the thing the marking master lacked the least was money, especially for a high-ranking marking master like Yuta. More than 100,000 high-grade primordial crystals were not considered a large amount of wealth to him. Oomph, what the hell? Old Lu had a displeased expression as he placed a pile of metal materials on the counter. He said to Yuta with extreme dissatisfaction, a total of 150,000 high-grade primordial crystals. Pay now, no credit. Manager Lu, give me 3 sets of rhinoceros crystal. Right at this moment, a cold female voice sounded out. A young figure in a white fox fur coat walked to the side of the counter. Chapter 323. Miss Jean E. The last 3 rhinoceros crystals are all here. They have already been bought by Big Mr. You. Do you want to negotiate? Old man Lu raised his hand and pointed at the 3 pure black metal materials that looked like rhinoceros horns on the table. Chu Hen, Big Yu, and Wen Hong were all startled. They all looked at old man Lu, especially Big Yu. His eyes were filled with anger. However, old man Lu did not pay any attention to him. The corners of his narrowed eyes revealed a hint of complacency. It was obvious that old man Lu was using his position to take revenge. Just now, Big Yu had ruthlessly killed him. Now, he seized the opportunity to make Jean E come out and suppress Big Yu. Old man Lu, are there really only 3 rhinoceros crystals left? Big Yu asked in a low voice. Why would I lie to you? You are a weapon refiner. You know very well that rhinoceros crystals are rare items. Every month, there are not more than 10 pieces that pass through my hands. These 3 pieces are the last in stock. Old man Lu purposely spoke in a louder voice. However, Jean-E did not look at Big Yu and the others. Her red lips slightly parted as she asked indifferently, how many bargaining chips? Hee, 3 rhinoceros crystals are 10,000 high-grade origin crystals. But since Miss Jean-E wants it, I will give you a discount. 9,000 will do. Among the series of metal materials on the counter, rhinoceros crystals were the most expensive. Naturally, such expensive materials were not needed to refine normal weapons. However, what Chu Hen wanted to repair was a totem-level treasure. The supplementary materials that he used were naturally not ordinary items. This was also why it was said that being a pattern master was a money-burning occupation. Put on my account. I will send someone to send it over later. Jean-E said indifferently. Her elegant and refined face was filled with pride. Old man Lu was naturally not afraid that Jean-E would renege on her debt. Yes, I will wrap it up for you. No need. Zhen Yi replied and directly extended her hand towards the 3 rhinoceros crystals. Seeing this situation, Big Yu finally could not bear it anymore. He said in a low voice, "Miss Zhen Yi, please wait." "Oh, what's the matter, great teacher Yu?" Zhen Yi lifted her eyelids slightly, finally looking straight at him. Speaking of which, with Yu Da's status, there weren't many people in the imperial city who dared to be so rude to him. However, from the beginning to the end, Zhen Yi could almost be said to have ignored him. She did not take him seriously at all. Even so, Big Yu didn't have any dissatisfaction. Who asked him to have Zhen Danxian behind him? "Miss Zhen Yi, can you leave me 2 rhino stone crystals?" "Of course, you don't need to pay a single cent for this rhinoceros stone crystal," Yuta said in a negotiating tone. To repair the illusionary spirit bell, the rhinoceros stone crystal was an indispensable supplementary material. Under normal circumstances, 3 sets of materials were required. After all, when it came to refining, risks were indispensable. Even an old master with decades of experience couldn't guarantee that he wouldn't make a mistake. Therefore, at times like this, another backup of materials was needed. Even if he failed, he could still continue. The rule of a tool pattern master was to have at least 3 sets of materials. Now, Yuta only wanted 2 of them, which was clearly a concession. However, Zhen Yi had no intention of agreeing. "I'm sorry, I need 3 sets." Her indifferent tone didn't have the slightest fluctuation of emotion. Old man Lu felt extremely refreshed in his heart when he saw Yu Da's deflated appearance, and he laughed in his heart. "Umph, Yuta, you become little Yu this time? Who asked you to extort this old man? Let's see what you can do without this rhinoceros stone crystal." Wenhong, who stood at the side, shook her head inwardly as well. Encountering this kind of thing, she was unable to help in the slightest. Even the president of the Pattern Masters Guild didn't dare casually offend a figure like Zhen Danxian. Encountering such a thing, Chu Hen could only consider himself unlucky. "Then I implore Miss Zhen Yi to leave 1 set of rhinoceros stone crystal for me. I'll pay for the other 2 sets as well." Whoosh! When Yuta said this, the entire hall couldn't help but give rise to a wave of low and heavy clamor. Only 1 set of rhinoceros stone crystal? This Yuta was really forcing himself onto the path of death. 1 set of materials. This also meant that Yuta only had 1 chance to refine a weapon. Once he failed, he would have to prepare other materials. For pattern artists, there was only 1 chance, so the psychological burden was very heavy. Zhen Yi glanced at him and replied with a chilly voice, "If there's nothing else, I'll take my leave first." As soon as she finished speaking, Zhen Yi intended to take the 3 rhinoceros stone crystals away. Yuda's expression was especially unsightly, alternating between red and white. Even though he was furious in his heart, he couldn't flare up. Right at this moment, Chu Hen, who hadn't spoken all along, suddenly blocked in front of Yuda and smiled indifferently. "Since we came first, please wait for us to finish our transaction. Uncle Lu, the bill." The surrounding people couldn't help but look as if they were watching a show when they saw this scene. But subsequently, the expressions on everyone's faces instantly froze, and all of them revealed extremely astonished expressions. "That's—" Everyone's gazes stared in unison at the hand that Chu Hen used to block towards Old Man Lu. And in that hand, there was an exquisite golden command token that was extremely dazzling. The Imperial family's Earth and Kuan token. Hiss! Amazing! Everyone could not help but suck in a breath of cold air. Their eyes were filled with envy. Even Yuta and Wenhong were stunned, thinking to themselves that this Chu Hen was too low-key. With the Earth and Kuan token, what were a few 100,000 upper-grade primordial crystal stones? This was definitely a symbol of status. At this moment, the person with the most interesting expression was none other than Old Man Lu. Looking at the Earth and Kuan token in front of him, he really wanted to slap himself hard. Originally, he wanted to use Zhen Yi's identity to suppress Yuda. Just when he was secretly pleased, Chu Hen directly took out a gold and Kuan token, instantly pushing Old Man Lu to the heart of the struggle. As everyone knew, The owner of the gold and Kuan token could unconditionally enjoy any resources from the large chambers of commerce and guilds in the Sacred Star Dynasty: elixirs, weapons, primordial crystal stones, etc. All expenses would be paid by the imperial family. Of course, the annual upper limit of 1 million upper-grade primordial crystal stones was secondary. The most important point was the priority to enjoy those resources. In other words, no matter what it was, Chu Hen would have the priority to obtain it. As for the others, they would have to wait until after him. What's wrong? Uncle Lu? Can you help me settle the bill first? Chu Hen faintly smiled. His gentle smile was very polite. However, Old Man Lu wanted to cry, but had no tears because he really only had these 3 rhinoceros stone crystals. Whether it was the imperial family or Zhen Danxian, he couldn't afford to offend them. That? Me? Zhen Yi's eyes flashed with some surprise, and then she said indifferently, "It's just a gold and Kuan token. Why do you have to pretend? You're just using the prestige of the imperial family to show off." If it was someone else who said this, it would definitely be seen as treason and rebellious. However, it was Zhen Yi, so no one present dared to criticize her. However, Chu Hen smiled and said indifferently, "I'm not using the prestige of the imperial family. I just want to buy some things. On the contrary, it's some people who bully others with no sense of propriety." Chu Hen, how dare you teach Ms. Zhen Yi a lesson? Who do you think you are? One of Zhen Yi's pursuers stepped forward and scolded Chu Hen while pointing at him. "Oh, I was wondering who it was. It turns out to be the famous double list champion." Zhen Yi seemed to have realized something, but her face was still full of arrogance. Seeing this situation, the surrounding people couldn't help but stand aside and watch the show. One was the recently popular double list champion, and the other was the famous first genius tattooist in the capital. Who would gain the upper hand in the collision between these two people? Behind Zhen, he was the only spiritual tattooist in the Saint Star Dynasty, Zhen Danxian. And Chu Hen also had the gold and earth token of the imperial family. Although the imperial family was the most powerful in the dynasty, Chu Hen was not a real member of the imperial family. Moreover, Zhen Danxian had a high status. In general, their momentum was evenly matched. Ms. Zhen Yi, I don't want to waste time with you here. Even if I don't take out the gold and earth token today, you should know the order of arrival, right? If you really need the rhinoceros crystal, I can give you one. Chu Hen's words were indeed reasonable. Yuda, Wen Hong, and others also nodded secretly. Chu Hen not only gave the opponent a way out, but also maintained his dignity. This approach was very reasonable. However, he didn't intend to compromise. It's not your turn to teach me a lesson. Don't think you're great just because you accidentally won the double list champion. You're not qualified to tell me what to do. Zhen Yi was also a proud girl who had been dazzled since she was a child. Moreover, everyone in the capital knew that Zhen Danxian spoiled her very much, almost treating her as his own daughter. With such a superior background, she didn't need to listen to Chu Hen's preaching here. Chu Hen sneered. It seems that Ms. Zhen Yi thinks my concession is cowardice. Isn't it? I have to say, Ms. Zhen Yi, you're really nothing in front of me. If we fight, you, Ms. Zhen Yi, can't even take one move from me. Buzz. An invisible domineering aura unconsciously flowed from Chu Hen's body, and everyone present couldn't help but change their expressions. Good Lord. As expected of Chu Hen, he was really bold. When it was quiet, he didn't want to say a word. Once he was angered, he would definitely trample on to death. How could the double list champion be an undeserved reputation? Zhen Yi's face turned pale, and she couldn't help but feel annoyed. Chapter 3:24. The atmosphere in the hall seemed to have frozen. Chu Hen and Zhen Yi, two people who had nothing to do with each other and had nothing to do with each other, suddenly burst into conflict at this moment. The words in front of me, you really don't count as much. If we were to fight, you wouldn't even be able to receive one of my moves made everyone present look at Chu Hen in a whole new light. Champion of a double role is indeed a champion of a double role. I don't care if you were Zhen Danxuan's niece or not. If you touch my bottom line, I will not give you any face. Zheng Yi's complexion was a bit pale from anger, especially the few men at the side. Previously, their voices were louder than anyone else's, but now that they saw Chu Hen's anger, they were so scared that they didn't even dare to say anything. What a bunch of trash, Zheng Yi cursed under her breath. Then, she looked back at Chu Hen coldly and said, "Humph, what is there for you, Wu Xiao, to be proud of in front of me? If you have the ability, compete with me in the art of runes. If I want to use the art of runes, it will be a piece of cake for me to crush you. Have fun. Today, I will compete with you in the art of runes." Chu Hen replied with a sneer. The surrounding people could not help but raise a low uproar. F***CK. This Chu Hen is really skilled and bold. What do you mean by skilled and bold? He will be crushed. Miss Zheng Yi is a 6th grade advanced rune master, and that Chu Hen is at most a 5th grade advanced rune master. Without using force, a 5th grade advanced rune master will be completely crushed. The crowd discussed in low voices. Yuda and Wenhong could not help but frown. They admitted that Chu Hen was indeed a very rare genius, but Zheng Yi had been personally taught by Zhang Danxian since young, and she had been cultivating in the otherworldly spirit sect for the past 2 years. It was not a wise decision for Chu Hen to fight Zheng Yi with only the art of runes. Don't regret it, Zheng Yi said disdainfully. Why should I regret it? Chu Hen retorted. All right then, let's have a competition using runes. If you lose, you'll have to kneel down and kowtow to me as an apology. You'll also have to be my slave and be at my beck and call, Zheng Yi said arrogantly. From her point of view, the fact that she was able to make the champion of the double role champion work for her like an ox or a horse would definitely cause a huge uproar in the capital if word of this got out. Chu Hen replied with a frivolous sneer. What if you lose? What a joke. How could I lose to you? If I'm lucky enough to win, I don't need Miss Zheng Yi to be my slave. I only need Miss to help me pay for the 150,000 high-grade crystals. Hua. As soon as these words were spoken, an uproar arose in the hall once more. This Chu Hen really boasted shamelessly. If it was in the case of using force, Zheng Yi was indeed not a match for Chu Hen. However, in terms of the art of runes alone, Zheng Yi could definitely be said to be invincible among the younger generation in the capital. How about it? A slightly provocative and playful arc appeared on Chu Hen's face. Let's talk about it after you win. Immediately, everyone in the hall retreated one after another, leaving enough open space in the central area. Under the different gazes of the people present, Zheng Yi took the lead to walk to the center of the hall. Chu Hen asked with a little surprise, Are we going to compete here? Is there a problem? Zheng Yi replied coldly, Haha, I'm afraid that it will tear this place down. Ignorant. Brother Chu Hen, there's something you don't know. Big Yu hurriedly stepped forward to explain to Chu Hen and said, Our engraving master guild's interior was set up by Lord President and a few elders before, a defensive formation called Mirage Soil. No matter how you destroy this hall, it can quickly recover to its original state. Oh, there's such a thing? Let me try it first. Chu Hen's eyes lit up, and he really began to experiment. He stomped his feet heavily. Bang! With a sound, the solid marble floor tiles under Chu Hen's feet suddenly shattered into pieces. The scattered waves of chi swept out, and the large and small rubble were startled, but soon, something amazing happened. However, the wantonly splashing rubble seemed to be subjected to an invisible traction and quickly converged back, and the marble tiles that were crushed by Chu Hen's feet were restored to their original state at a speed visible to the naked eye. In the blink of an eye, not even a trace was left. Is it really so magical? Chu Hen sighed in amazement. Yes, Yuda nodded. In fact, this defensive formation is similar to a kind of illusion formation, and the floor is not ordinary marble. It is mixed with many kinds of very precious rare refining materials. The cost of production is very expensive, and with the operation of the defensive formation, it will form this kind of effect that is illusory, fake and real. I see. Let me try again. Immediately, Chu Hen began to casually stomp on the ground. As he walked, he stomped on the ground, directly circling around the surroundings. Moreover, Each stomp was stronger than the previous one. With each stomp, the marble tiles would split open if it was light, while the heavier ones would collapse. Seeing this, everyone couldn't help but secretly shake their heads. It turned out that this Chu Hen was like a frog at the bottom of a well who had never seen the world. Yuda and Wen Hong couldn't help but look at each other. They both read the confusion in each other's eyes and thought to themselves, "What the hell is this Chu Hen doing?" Trying once was enough. However, the other party had continuously stepped on more than 10 floor tiles. However, it was the same as the first time. The floor tiles that were stepped on by Chu Hen had all healed together. Not even a trace was left behind. "Are you done messing around?" Zhen Yi coldly looked at Chu Hen, who turned from the left to the back and from the back to the right. Her pretty face was full of disdain. "If you want to play any tricks, I advise you not to waste your time. No matter what tricks you are playing, you will definitely lose today." Hee. Ms. Zhen Yi is very informative. Chu Hen smiled and stopped his footsteps. Then he walked to the opposite side of Zhen Yi and stopped about 20 meters away from her. Then he faced her directly. Zhen Yi's eyes were still filled with disdain. She lifted her right hand, and a strand of golden Reiki energy wrapped around her fair and slender fingers. "Can we start now?" Chu Hen slightly raised his hand and made a please gesture. "Please, Buzz." As soon as his voice fell, a cold glint flashed in Zhen Yi's eyes, and surging Reiki energy spread out from her Niwen palace like a rising tide. Along with the slightly trembling space, nearly 100 gorgeous and resplendent, mysterious runes instantly hovered around her fingertips. So fast, everyone's expression changed. Even though they were all rune masters, the speed at which Zhen Yi condensed runes almost completely surpassed everyone present. Under Zhen Yi's control, the nearly 100 runes directly scattered and integrated into the surrounding ground. Yellow Springs Marsh Technique. Buzz. Chapter 325. Yellow Springs Swamp Technique. Close to 100 runes fused into the air, following which an extremely astonishing and majestic aura erupted from a gorgeous spell formation. In the next instant, the ground under Chu Hen's feet became extremely soft. The sturdy marble immediately twisted, and like a quagmire, it dragged Chu Hen's legs down. What a shocking speed! The surrounding inscription masters were all amazed. Zhen Yi was indeed a genius inscription master who had stayed in the otherworldly spirit sect for 2 years. The speed at which she was setting up the inscription formation even made some of the inscription masters who had been in the inscription formation for 20 to 30 years feel ashamed. This Chu Hen has really kicked an iron plate today. He asked for it. He can't blame anyone else. Tomorrow, the news of the double-ranking champion working like a slave for Miss Zhen Yi will spread throughout the capital. That will definitely be explosive. Ha ha. A few of Zhen Yi's pursuers at the side talked about Chu Hen without restraint. Yuda and Wen Hong could not help but worry for Chu Hen. If Chu Hen was facing someone else, they could still believe that Chu Hen would be able to handle it. However, his opponent was Zhen Yi, and the two of them had no confidence at all. In just a blink of an eye, Chu Hen's knees had sunk in. However, there was no panic on the handsome young man's face. A powerful Reiki energy was released, and Chu Hen immediately shot out dozens of incomparably beautiful runes that merged into the surrounding ground. The mysterious runes were like raindrops that dripped into the water, disappearing without a trace. However, immediately after, circles of intense energy rippled in the air like water ripples, and the energy of dozens of runes instantly resonated. Crystal Consolidation Formation. Kacha, accompanied by a shocking power, the quagmire beneath Chu Hen quickly stiffened into rocks, and it stopped moving down. However, at this moment, Zhen Yi once again threw out dozens of runes. The bright runes quickly arranged themselves, forming a tattoo formation that was more than 10 meters wide. And Chu Hen was at the center of the array. Fire Spirit Array. Zhen Yi made a hand sign and shouted coldly. Boom! In an instant, a scarlet pillar of fire with a diameter of more than 10 meters suddenly soared into the sky. The incomparably scorching wave of air was like a volcano that had suddenly erupted. The surrounding crowd was shaken by the mighty aftershock, causing them to continuously retreat. The terrifying pillar of fire rose to the sky and attacked the ceiling. He saw that the roof of the ceiling had melted. Everyone's expression changed again and again. The rune power that Zhang displayed was truly terrifying. Of course, the people present did not need to worry that the impact of the power caused by the fight between the two people would destroy the hall. Every inch of bricks and tiles here was made of special materials, and with the maintenance of the Mirage Soil defensive formation, it would not take long for it to be restored to its original state. Everyone's eyes were fixed on the center of the pillar of fire. With the dissipation of the flames, the pupils of the surrounding people could not help but shrink slightly. They saw that 4 hard rock walls formed an airtight space, blocking the invasion of the flames from all directions. This guy's reaction ability is really amazing. There was a burst of exclamation from the crowd. Bang! With a loud explosion, along with a strong Reiki energy fluctuation, a sharp silver pillar of light suddenly penetrated the rock. Then, like a flying arrow that could trace back thousands of years, it rolled up a strong lethality and attacked Zhang Yi in front of it. The cold attack was unusually fast. Zhang Yi's eyes, which were flashing with a cold light, slightly narrowed. Then, the bright runes around her body lingered. Xiao! As she dodged the attack of the silver light, she flew out like a phantom. Her speed was comparable to that of an arrow leaving the bow. Buzz! As she moved, a dozen golden runes that emitted a stern and fierce aura rapidly gathered in the palm of her hand. A strong energy fluctuation startled, and a sharp golden sword shadow appeared in her hand. The runes on the sword body flickered like light. This sword attack was extremely powerful. The rune sword formed by the brilliant spirit force pierced through the thick stone wall like it was tofu, without the slightest hindrance. Beautiful. Haha. Ms. Zhang Yi is amazing. That guy's trapped in his own web, huh? A few people who supported Zhang Yi clapped and cheered. Although Chu Hen had used the rock to block the attack of the fire spirit array, he had also directly sealed off his path of retreat. Zhang Yi seized the opportunity at the fastest speed and gave Chu Hen a fatal blow. However, Zhang Yi's face was not as happy as expected. Instead, her slender eyebrows slightly furrowed. Boom! Suddenly, the ground behind Zhang Yi blossomed with a dazzling white light, and a corner of the rune array was revealed. It's the Earth Movement Array. A rune artist nearby could not help but blurt out. The Earth Movement Array, a high-grade rune array. Using this array, one could hide underground and move freely within the range of the array. However, the shocking thing was that setting up the Earth Movement Array required more than 100 runes, half of which were high-grade runes. It was a rune array that required a lot of time to complete. How fast is that guy condensing runes? The one who spoke was a thin, middle-aged man. In the next moment, a handsome, young figure flashed out from the Earth Movement Array behind Zhang Yi. Swoosh! The rapid wind was especially ear-piercing. Chu Hen's right palm, which was surrounded by a gorgeous rune light, quickly reached for Zhang Yi's neck. Miss Zhang Yi, thank you for letting me win. Humph. Are you sure you can catch me? A frivolous smile appeared on Zhang Yi's face. She turned around, and a cold light flashed in her eyes. The corner of Chu Hen's eyes narrowed, and his attack instantly accelerated. Buzz! A flowing light flashed, and under the shocked gazes of the surrounding people, Chu Hen's right palm directly passed through Zhang Yi's body. At the same time, the corner of Zhang Yi's mouth curled into a disdainful smile. Her body shattered and turned into countless beautiful and gorgeous butterflies. Not good. It's an illusion array. Yu Da's expression changed, and his brows unconsciously furrowed. Among the many rune arrays, illusion arrays were one of the more difficult to break. An illusion array mainly attacked one's spiritual will. If one's willpower was not strong enough when trapped in an illusion array, it was very easy to fall into it. It was very troublesome. This girl is really not simple. I'm afraid that when Zhen Danxian was at her age, he might not have been able to use runes so skillfully. Wenhong shook her head and sighed. Chapter 326. It's an illusion array. Under the gazes that were filled with astonishment, Chu Hen's right palm strangely passed through Zhen Yi's body. After that, her tall and slender body strangely shattered and transformed into countless beautiful butterflies that fluttered in the air. Hundreds and thousands of butterflies flapped their wings, forming a beautiful scene. Chu Hen stood in the center of the swarm of butterflies. The corners of his eyes revealed a faint cold glint. Then, with a flick of his finger, a dazzling rune flew out and hit the largest black butterfly accurately. Bang! A layer of violent energy rippled in the air. The black butterfly was directly shattered by Chu Hen's attack, crumbling into fine powder. However, the illusion in front of him still did not disappear. The densely packed swarm of butterflies still surrounded Chu Hen from all directions. Hiss hiss. Quickly after, the butterflies of all sizes that fluttered around Chu Hen all spat out strands of white silk. Every single strand of the soft silk was extremely fine. If it wasn't for the fact that there were too many of them, even the naked I would have difficulty catching them. In the face of Zhen Yi's powerful and swift attack, Yuda and Wenhong were really worried for Chu Hen. Among the many rune masters present, only the two of them had a little bit of confidence in Chu Hen, but it was only a little bit. Looking at the delicate silk attacking from all directions, Chu Hen's palm quickly transformed into a dozen gorgeous scarlet runes. Once the runes appeared, they were instantly arranged and activated. Fire Python Array. Chu Hen softly shouted. Buzz! In the next second, an incomparably hot wave of air once again soared into the sky. A huge flame python that was over 10 meters long and as thick as a bucket coiled around Chu Hen's body, forming a full range of protection. Under normal circumstances, the white silk would be burned to ashes in the blink of an eye when it came into contact with flames. However, not only were the white silk in front of everyone not burned, it was like a sharp weapon that pierced through tofu, directly piercing through the fire python that coiled around Chu Hen's body. What followed was Chu Hen's agonized cries. The hearts of the surrounding people were shocked. Yuda and Wenhong furrowed their brows deeply, their eyes filled with helplessness. The fire python's momentum was rapidly suppressed, and it quickly dissipated. However, a scene that no one could bear to look at, and that caused their hearts to tremble, appeared. Chu Hen's body was penetrated by hundreds and thousands of fine threads. The fine white threads pierced through Chu Hen's wrists, ankles, knees, shoulders, and other major joints. It looked like Chu Hen was a marionette. The surrounding people were all secretly shocked. It was really painful to look at. Endless pain pierced through every one of Chu Hen's nerves. Even the slightest movement would cause excruciating pain. What was worse was that the threads contained poison. Under everyone's fearful gaze, Chu Hen's skin turned greenish-black at a speed visible to the naked. His body trembled violently. Chu Hen's legs bent, and he almost knelt on the ground. The outcome was decided. Looking at the scene in front of them, no one had the slightest doubt in their hearts. As expected of Miss Zhen Yi, she easily dealt with that arrogant guy. He thinks he's invincible in every field just because he won the double role champion. How foolish. When we wake up tomorrow, the whole city will be filled with news of the double role champion working like a slave for Miss Zhen Yi. Ha ha. A few of Zhen Yi's pursuers laughed wantonly. Sigh. Yuda sighed helplessly. He thought that with Chu Hen's personality, he would not be so impulsive. He did not expect this to be the result. It seemed that he had overestimated Chu Hen. Buzz, buzz. The multicolored butterflies that filled the sky gathered behind Chu Hen, who was unable to move, and quickly revealed Zhen Yi's original appearance. You're really overestimating yourself with this little ability of yours. Zhen Yi held a dagger condensed from runes in her hand and pointed it at the back of Chu Hen's neck. From today onwards, you're this young Mrs. Servant. You have to follow me wherever I go, follow my lead, and obey my orders. Hee, is that so? Do I have to follow you when you're taking a bath? A frivolous laugh came out of Chu Hen's mouth. Everyone was shocked. What was going on? Then they saw that Chu Hen had already formed a seal with both of his hands. His bright eyes revealed a playful smile. There was not a trace of pain on his face. Miss Jeanne, everything in front of me is an illusion. Do you really think I've been fooled? Illusion break. Break. In the next moment, an extremely powerful aura exploded from Chu Hen's body. Yuda and Wenhong's eyes instantly lit up. Then, a bright and dazzling golden light burst out like the radiance of the sun. An extremely strong wind raged, and a huge airflow swept in all directions. The eyes of the surrounding onlookers shrunk to the size of a needle. Buzz, the space trembled slightly. Everyone only saw a white light flash before their eyes. Then, the initial scene appeared in front of everyone's eyes. Chu Hen and Jeanne maintained the scene at the beginning. There was a distance of more than 10 meters between them. Chu Hen's body did not show any signs of being pierced by the thin silk, nor was his body corroded by the poison. What? Was that an illusion all along? Miss Jeanne is really amazing. Even us onlookers were trapped in it. Apart from a few high-level rune masters who could still maintain their composure, most of the others were shocked. The illusion array that Jeanne had set up was not only targeted at Chu Hen, but also confused everyone outside. So much so that almost everyone thought that Chu Hen had been captured by Jeanne. Zhen Danchuan's niece is really not simple. Yuda lightly exhaled, but I think that Chu Hen is even more not simple. Wenhong said, a chilling cold current swept out. Chu Hen raised his eyebrows slightly and looked at Jeanne in front of him with great interest. He said, your movements are too big. Your first Yellow Springs marsh technique can't use more than 100 runes. What you really need to set up is the illusory array at the back. Oomph. Zhenyi's face was as cold as ice. Her slender eyebrows surged with a trace of coldness. You just happened to discover a clue. You won't be so lucky next. After saying that, a stronger Reiki energy than before gushed out from Zhenyi's body. However, at this moment, the corner of Chu Hen's mouth raised into a mischievous smile. Before that, I would like to ask Ms. Jeanne, did you bring enough money today? What? Everyone's heart skipped a beat. Buzz. In the next instant, something that caused everyone to be extremely surprised occurred. The ground around Jeanne abruptly lit up with over 10 dazzling arcs of talisman markings. What's going on? It's a rune array. Before everyone could recover from their shock, Chu Hen had already formed a hand seal. Thick Reiki energy spread out from his Naiwan palace. Trap array, activate. Swoosh, swoosh. Along with the rapid wind-breaking momentum, the brilliant light patterns that bloomed around Jeanne suddenly turned into several sharp rays of light that entangled Jeanne in the middle. This was merely the most basic of entrapment arrays. But under such circumstances, Jeanne was still caught unprepared. The bright rays of light directly wrapped around her legs and ankles. I know, this is the rune that the kid planted when he stepped on the floor tiles. A loud and clear exclamation exploded in the hall. These words had awakened everyone from their dreams. As these words were spoken, the expression of everyone present changed. Their hearts were filled with shock. Just before the two people's rune technique duel, Chu Hen had consecutively stepped on more than 10 floor tiles, and he had even walked around in a circle. At that time, everyone only thought that Chu Hen had not seen much of the world, and was foolish and ignorant, making a fool of himself here. Now it seemed that the seemingly unintentional action was deliberately done by Chu Hen. Every time the other party stepped on a floor tile, he had in fact planted a rune. Continuously breaking more than 10 floor tiles was equivalent to more than 10 runes. And these 10 runes were enough to complete the simplest rune array. Now that they thought about it, everyone present could not help but feel that they had been fooled by Chu Hen. It was very simple. The matter of the illusionary soil array being set up in the hall of the Engraver Guild was not a secret. Almost everyone in the imperial capital knew about it. However, Chu Hen had just pretended to not know anything. This was not ignorance, but true cleverness. This guy is really surprising. In just a blink of an eye, he had broken the array that was wrapped around her legs. However, a basic rune array could only affect the other party for a moment. However, in that instant, tens of bright and resplendent runes were released from Chu-Hen's body. Light rune technique. Boom! Immediately, under Chu-Hen's control, the dozens of bright runes all burst out with an extremely dazzling light. Everyone present felt a stinging pain in their eyes and hurriedly raised their sleeves to cover their eyes. Zhenyi's pretty face turned pale, and her pupils shrank to the size of a needle tip. In that dazzling bright light, a swift and fierce figure attacked. Buzz, buzz. In a short period of less than 2 seconds, the dazzling light subsequently faded. But looking at the scene in front of them again, it directly caused everyone present to be dumbfounded. They saw that Chu-Hen, who was more than 10 meters away a second ago, was now right behind Zhenyi. Chu-Hen's right hand, which was surrounded by the bright light of runes, condensed into a sharp thorn. The moment the thorn's sharpness paused, it was directly aimed at Zhenyi's waist. This time, I'm very sure that I have caught you. Miss Zhen,